Chapter 441, Snape Resumes His Duties. The sudden appearance of Snape was the worst news possible for Gryffindor. It signified the end of their relatively peaceful days. 10 points deducted, Potter, Snape announced in his familiar, chilling tone, causing Harry to shudder. Detention tonight, Snape declared, his voice dripping with disdain. Snape? Harry couldn't help but utter, upon seeing the long, sallow face of his professor. It appears you have yet to learn the meaning of politeness, Snape remarked, his eyelids lifting slightly in disapproval. 5 more points will be deducted for your disrespect towards a professor. Harry, who had just been on the receiving end of a physical altercation with Malfoy, was leaning against the wall, trying to catch his breath. He was certain that if he were to vomit, Snape would find a reason to deduct even more points for making a mess. Casting a venomous look at Malfoy, who was smirking triumphantly with his arms crossed, Harry protested. Malfoy was the one who started this. I have eyes, Potter, Snape retorted with a smug tone, and I saw you charging at him like a rabid dog. Gasping for air, Harry made his way towards the auditorium, while Hermione assisted Ron, who had attempted to intervene but ended up colliding headfirst with Harry. Snape's lips curled into a slight smile, seemingly pleased by the turn of events. Meanwhile, back at the Slytherin table, Malfoy was gleefully announcing the end of Harry Potter's good days, now that Snape had resumed his duties. Snape had been absent for a month, following a confrontation with the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor on the first day of school. His return meant that he would once again be taking over potions class. Professor Slughorn entered the Great Hall, making his way towards the Slytherin table with a jovial bounce in his step. Oh, wonderful, you're all here, he exclaimed, his eyes twinkling. How about joining me for a light meal tonight? Malfoy, Miss Greengrass, Zabini, and of course, I'd be delighted if John could join us as well. Slughorn's invitation was part of his effort to gather a select group of students, whom he considered his collection. Upon hearing Ginny Weasley's name, Blaise immediately showed interest, prompting Slughorn to confirm her invitation with a laugh. Malfoy, momentarily taken aback by the mention of Astoria Greengrass, was reassured when Slughorn extended the invitation to both Greengrass sisters, praising Astoria's Quidditch skills. As Slughorn continued to extend his invitations, including one to Hermione from Gryffindor, the excitement among the students grew. However, John declined, citing prior commitments, leaving Daphne to speculate about Blaise's seemingly love-struck behavior. The party at Slughorn's office was a grand affair, with the furniture rearranged to accommodate a round table and an hourglass shedding green sand as a centerpiece. Among the attendees were Gryffindor's new Quidditch players, Cormac McLaggen and Ginny Weasley, the Greengrass sisters, Malfoy, and a witch named Melinda Bobbin, among others. Harry, unfortunately, was unable to attend due to his detention, and Ron had not been invited. This gathering underlined Slughorn's influence and his penchant for surrounding himself with promising students, setting the stage for an evening of networking and subtle maneuvering within the magical community. Daphne Greengrass, a member of a prestigious dormitory, comes from a family that owns a large chain of pharmacies. Surprisingly, Ernie Macmillan, who is often seen as less refined, was also invited by Professor Slughorn, whose intentions remained a mystery. It might seem odd for a headmaster to concern himself with such minor details, but Slughorn had a knack for it. During one of his gatherings, Slughorn noticed the absence of his 2 favorite students and decided to bring out an enticing ice cream that hadn't melted yet. The ice cream, adorned with various colors and nuts, was visually appealing and whetted everyone's appetite. The evening took an interesting turn when McLaggen made advances towards Hermione, who rejected him, leaving him feeling cold. Blaise Zabini attempted to court Ginny Weasley, but after being rejected, he humorously considered using the Bat Bogey Hex on her. Draco Malfoy, on the other hand, did not reject Astoria Greengrass's advances, which led Daphne to jokingly suggest hanging Malfoy in the Slytherin common room as a form of retribution. Ernie Macmillan, despite his goofy demeanor, managed to engage in pleasant conversation with both Slughorn and Melinda, a melancholic witch. After dinner, in a humorous twist, Malfoy was indeed hung from the fireplace in the Slytherin common room, prompting a discussion on whether this unconventional method could aid digestion. John, finding amusement in Daphne's actions, lowered Malfoy with a wave of his hand and suggested a glass of mulled wine to help everyone sleep better. The evening's events were overshadowed by a headline in the Evening Prophet announcing an attack on the Rosier family, an ancient pure-blood lineage, signaling the start of a tumultuous day. In the Care of Magical Creatures class, John increased the exercise regimen for a Zulu to help manage its energy during its mating season. Hagrid, ever the optimist, had hoped to find suitable animals for crossbreeding experiments, but John, upon seeing the manticore Hagrid had chosen, wisely advised against it to prevent potential disasters. Hagrid's creation of blast-ended scroots through hybridization experiments showcased his expertise, though his choices sometimes bordered on the reckless. The Zulu, unaware of the evening's earlier events, joyfully chased after a furball, which John magically threw towards Grop. Grop, delighted, swung his bat to send the ball flying, and his joyous dance indicated his pleasure. This activity helped Grop abandon his tree-pulling habit, showcasing the benefits of proper exercise and engagement. As the day progressed, John noticed that Gryffindor had taken the lead in the house points competition, with Slytherin falling to third place. Malfoy's frustration was palpable as he stormed into the Great Hall, having lost 20 points in defense against the dark arts, a class even Goyle and Crabbe struggled in. In the dungeons, the atmosphere changed as Professor Snape entered, his presence alone lowering the room's mood. Snape's disregard for John's absence was notable, as he focused on maintaining high standards for Gryffindor, inadvertently causing stress that led to mistakes. Ron Weasley's mishap with horseradish resulted in a laughing potion mishap, filling the classroom with laughter, an unusual occurrence in Snape's typically strict environment. The competition between the houses intensified, with Gryffindor and Slytherin seesawing in points due to the rivalry between Professors Snape and Sirius Black. Sirius used humor to mock Snape in his classes, while Snape retaliated with a potion for treating fractures, subtly referencing Sirius's past injuries and deducting points from Gryffindor. This fierce competition highlighted the ongoing undercurrent of rivalry between the two professors, affecting the house points and adding an extra layer of tension to the school year. The rivalry between the two houses fluctuated constantly. John remarked nostalgically, if George and Fred were here, they'd surely wager on who would ultimately triumph. This competitive spirit persisted until October, coinciding with the first Hogsmeade visit of the academic year. The prospect of encountering the enigmatic duo and risking point deductions drove nearly everyone out of the school. Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw students, inadvertently caught in the crossfire, also vacated the premises. Consequently, the castle was left eerily deserted. As the students embarked on their journey to Hogsmeade, the usually bustling corridors of Hogwarts were shrouded in an unusual silence. The absence of laughter, chatter, and the usual hustle and bustle gave the castle a ghostly atmosphere. It was as if the very soul of Hogwarts had accompanied the students to Hogsmeade, leaving behind a shell of stone and magic. The rivalry that had ignited such fervor among the students was momentarily forgotten, replaced by the excitement of visiting the magical village. Yet the underlying tension remained, simmering beneath the surface, a reminder of the ongoing competition that had transformed the school's dynamic. In Hogsmeade, the students dispersed, each group or individual pursuing their own interests. Some headed straight for honeydukes, eager to stock up on chocolate frogs and Bertie Bott's every flavor beans, while others made a beeline for the Three Broomsticks, craving the warmth and comfort of a butterbeer. As the day progressed, the rivalry between the houses was momentarily set aside, overshadowed by the joy of exploration and the freedom from school constraints. However, the specter of the mysterious duo and the potential for point deductions loomed over them, a constant reminder of the stakes involved in their ongoing competition. The visit to Hogsmeade offered a brief respite from the tensions at Hogwarts, but as the students returned to the castle, the reality of the rivalry quickly reasserted itself. The deserted corridors once again filled with the sounds of life, but the undercurrent of competition was ever present, an invisible force shaping the interactions and dynamics within the school. Chapter 442. A Cold Wind and a New Direction. The cold wind was biting, its icy fingers clawing at exposed skin as it whipped across the Scottish landscape. Footprints pressed into the mud, the ice within it crunching underfoot. Scotland's weather had turned cold swiftly, a reminder of the harshness of the season. John stepped beyond the protective boundaries of Hogwarts, extending his arm for the black owl that swooped down gracefully to perch upon it. He carefully retrieved the letter from Riddle's beak, unfolding it to read its contents. Jin has been busy collecting a vast array of magical books, he mused, his eyes scanning the words. Among these texts were spells and enchantments considered dark or forbidden, including rare magic that manipulated the soul, magic uncommon in their country. It seemed Johnny Silverhand's influence had reached far beyond their borders, gathering these arcane secrets from foreign lands. Perhaps it's time to shift our focus, John contemplated, his gaze drifting eastward. The history and magical heritage there were far older and more intact than what they had explored so far. Let's head to Hogsmeade first. Tang Mi has sent something, he suggested to Daphne, who stood beside him, her face half hidden by a green scarf against the cold. Leading the way, John positioned himself to shield Daphne from the biting wind. The weather hardly seems conducive for a stroll, he remarked, offering his hand with a light chuckle. Let's opt for a quicker method. Daphne took his hand, and in the blink of an eye, they vanished, reappearing in Hogsmeade. Daphne, slightly disoriented from the apparition, received John's comforting suggestion. A visit to Honeyduke's for some sweets should help, he said, guiding her towards the famed candy store. The warmth of Honeyduke's enveloped them as they entered, the scent of toffee filling the air and chasing away the chill. The store was quieter than usual, allowing them to browse without the usual crowd. John selected several premium chocolates, their choices observed by the proprietress with a nostalgic smile, perhaps reminiscing about her own school days. How about this one? John offered, presenting a berry-flavored snack to Daphne, whose cheeks were tinged with a blush. Whether from the cold or the gesture, it was hard to tell. After their visit, they stepped out to find the streets now bustling with Hogwarts students. Draco Malfoy, with Astoria in tow, sneaked into Honeyduke's after ensuring the coast was clear of any intimidating presence. Inside, they encountered Blaise Zabini, indulging in the purchase of an extravagant candy gift box. Malfoy couldn't resist commenting, "Blaise, you might as well send a love potion to the Weasley girl if you're going to splurge like that." "You don't understand," Blaise retorted, a hint of melancholy in his voice. "Love is about capturing that spark in a moment." Malfoy, ever the provocateur, felt an unusual urge to argue, offended by the implication that he didn't understand love. As Blaise continued his quest for Ginny Weasley, Malfoy made a cynical wager with Astoria, predicting the gift's eventual disposal. However, the voice that responded wasn't Astoria's. Turning, Malfoy found himself face to face with Daphne, her expression one of mock kindness. John and Daphne hadn't strayed far and had easily spotted Malfoy, thanks to his conspicuous companions. The encounter led to an awkward grouping, with John and Malfoy walking together while Daphne and Astoria formed their own pair. Malfoy's hopes for a pleasant outing were dashed, further soured by witnessing Blaise's rejection outside Honeyduke's. This chapter not only captures the whimsical yet competitive nature of Hogwarts students, but also hints at deeper plots and alliances forming beyond the school's walls. John's interest in forbidden magic and the East suggests a quest for knowledge that may challenge the very foundations of their magical world. In Madame Puddifoot's tea house, John found himself in an awkward situation after attempting to invite Ginny to join him at another table, right in front of Dean. This bold move instantly branded him as persona non grata. John was at a loss for words, especially when it came to Blaise. As a Slytherin, Blaise was known for his wealthy mother and impressive academic achievements. However, his approach to courtship was as subtle as a sledgehammer, leading to increasingly aggressive attempts to win over his object of affection. Even Malfoy considered Blaise's tactics to be over the top. "Good effort, Blaise," John said, offering a sympathetic pat on the shoulder to the young man, who seemed to be more determined with each failure. Later, John found solace in the solitude of the Pig's Head Tavern, where he encountered Tang Mi. Tang Mi handed him a black box with a concerned expression. "This item is imbued with a strong malice and curse," he warned. John reassured him. Don't worry, it's not intended for harm. He opened the box to reveal a stunning opal necklace, a piece he had acquired from Borgin and Burke's to adorn the 9 doors of the Quenching Club. To truly entertain the Dark Lord, we need something that excites, John remarked with a chuckle, fully committed to his pursuit of thrill. Tang Mi, unsure of how to respond, watched as John prepared to leave. He then reminded John about the unpaid bill, to which John replied with a leisurely voice, "If you'd cover the cost of those candies, I'd gladly settle the bill." Tang Mi's frustration was palpable as he found himself footing the bill for his boss's extravagant tastes. Back at the castle, John had hoped Blaze would show some restraint, but he had underestimated the Slytherin's tenacity. Has he really written a 5th love letter? John mused, half admiring Blaze's relentless creativity and considering whether he had the makings of a great novelist. 3 love letters in one day, John noted, as he instructed Goyle and Crabbe to detain Blaze for a checkup, suspecting a love potion might be at play. However, the examination yielded no such evidence. Blaze, sometimes it's wise to maintain a distance, John advised, hoping to steer him away from potential trouble. Blaze seemed to understand, yet his infatuation with Ginny remained undiminished. As the week progressed, the ongoing feud between Snape and Sirius showed no signs of abating, drawing even Slughorn's concern. He urged them to dial down their animosity, especially after Malfoy's trivial point deduction incident. Slughorn feared the continuous conflict would lead to a loss of points for both houses. Following this intervention, the 2 professors showed some restraint, though the tension between them remained palpable, with every encounter charged with the potential for a magical duel. Meanwhile, Malfoy was preoccupied with the Quidditch team's rigorous training schedule, which John found to be excessively demanding. He discreetly reduced the training sessions by a third, allowing the team some much-needed rest. John continued to attend the Care of Magical Creatures class, where he was impressed by Grop's progress in basic arithmetic, a testament to John's effective use of spiritual magic for communication. As the weather turned colder, John dismantled the opal necklace, aware of its dark history. The necklace had claimed the lives of 19 Muggles, a stark reminder of its sinister nature. This was the reason behind Tang Mi's apprehension when delivering it, highlighting the dangerous allure of such dark artifacts. John meticulously prepared the opal necklace, its sinister gleam hinting at dark intentions. With careful precision, he placed it into one of the 9 intricately designed doors. These doors, mirroring the exclusive access of the Star Club, demanded a badge for entry. They were a product of shuttle technology, a marvel John had mastered from his adventures in another realm, specifically from a megalithic monument. Yet, despite their advanced design, these doors did not possess the monument's world-traversing capabilities. Instead, they functioned more like sophisticated keys, enabling travel between distinct locations. As John was finalizing his preparations, his exit was unexpectedly halted by an encounter. Dumbledore, with a cordial, "Good evening, John," greeted him as the door swung open. Harry, who was with Dumbledore, instantly became tense upon seeing John. John's gaze shifted between them, catching a glimpse of a Pensieve through the open doorway. It was evident that Dumbledore had invested his entire being into nurturing Harry, a task of monumental importance. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken words and hidden agendas. John, realizing the gravity of the moment, knew that the paths they were on were intricately linked, yet divergent in their goals. The opal necklace, now lying in wait behind one of the 9 doors, was a testament to the lengths John would go to achieve his ends. Yet, in the presence of Dumbledore and Harry, a complex web of loyalty, duty, and destiny began to unfold, setting the stage for events that would challenge their very beliefs and aspirations. Chapter 443. The Enigmatic Professor. Professor John's whereabouts were as unpredictable as the twists of fate. At times he could be found wandering the depths of the Forbidden Forest, while at others he might make a sudden appearance in a classroom or even the headmaster's office. On this particular day, he found himself in the latter, where Professor Slughorn was in the midst of brewing a potion. The steam rose gently from a milky white bone china teacup, filled to the brim with freshly brewed tea. "A perfect potion," Slughorn boasted, setting the teacup beside the cauldron with a satisfied smile. I dare say, no one before has ever conceived such a bold idea. Slughorn, ever the enthusiast for groundbreaking work in the field of potions, suggested, "The master of practical potions would be thrilled to publish your work on this universal potion." He was more than willing to leverage his connections for a feature in the prestigious magazine, believing that the allure of fame was irresistible to the youth. However, John was no ordinary young wizard. "No, Professor. This potion is far from perfect," John demurred, carefully decanting the potion from the cauldron into a small reagent bottle. He gave the bottle a gentle shake, observing for any signs of separation within the vibrant green liquid, a critical test of the potion's stability. Slughorn, puzzled, inquired, "Why?" "You've just created a universal potion capable of hemostasis, detoxification, strengthening, and curse-breaking. It's a remarkable achievement that deserves recognition." Having witnessed the potion's creation, Slughorn was eager to add this marvel to his collection of protégés' achievements. Yet, John's reluctance only served to frustrate him further, akin to the incessant itch of an unreachable scratch. He was convinced that letting such talent slip through his fingers would be a regret he'd carry to his grave. After a moment's contemplation, John chuckled softly, "Because this potion is merely a byproduct of my true goal, which is to find a cure for the blood curse. The journey towards that end is filled with many discoveries, but they are merely stepping stones." Sealing the reagent bottle, John met Slughorn's gaze, his words resonating with a profound truth. Until the final goal is reached, everything else is but a scenic view along the path. Slughorn, teacup in hand, was momentarily lost in thought, struck by the realization that some pursuits transcend the desire for recognition or collection. "Well, I can't convince you," he conceded, "but at least give your creation a name." "Jade potion," John suggested, as he transferred the remaining potion into a bottle, its contents shimmering with the lustrous green of an emerald. Though glass may shine, it is the emerald that possesses true strength. Besides, I've always been fond of that shade of green. As John prepared to leave, Slughorn extended an invitation. "I'm hosting a party before Christmas. I'd like you to come." "A student?" John queried. After a brief internal struggle, Slughorn clarified, "A friend, a pen pal, if you will, John." "I'll be there," John replied, with a respectful bow and a light smile. "I'll bring a bottle of oak-aged mead. I hope it will be to your liking, Professor." "I'll be looking forward to it," Slughorn said, watching John depart. "Genius," he mused, "always challenges the norms, and not even the position of headmaster could diminish Slughorn's fascination with such rare talent." Meanwhile, the tension between Snape and Sirius had reached a boiling point. Following a particularly contentious defense against the dark arts class, Slytherin found themselves 10 points lighter, a leniency that seemed uncharacteristic of Sirius. In retaliation, Snape had Harry placed in solitary confinement for speaking out of turn, a decision that infuriated Sirius. Barging into Snape's office, Sirius pointed an accusing finger and demanded, "You'd better reverse Harry's confinement." Snape, unfazed, continued to organize his potion ingredients. Once finished, he descended from his ladder and replied coolly, "I'm afraid that decision is beyond your purview. After all, such matters fall under the head of house's discretion, and you," Snape said, casting a dismissive glance at Sirius, "are not the head of Gryffindor." With that, Sirius's authority was summarily dismissed, igniting his temper further. "I'm warning you," Sirius began, his irritation palpable. With fire blazing in his eyes, Sirius confronted Snape. "Don't pretend ignorance. You want Harry to miss the Quidditch match." Snape, with his characteristic eccentricity, feigned confusion. "I have no idea what you're insinuating, and what difference do you think Potter can make?" "Slytherin has secured 11 consecutive victories," Snape retorted with a sneer, "and Potter's participation won't alter that outcome." "Harry is as talented as James was. He's the best seeker," Sirius argued, his voice rising with emotion. "Do I need to remind you that a winning streak means never having faced defeat?" Snape countered coldly. "Severus," Sirius exclaimed, his tone softening momentarily before Snape cut him off. "Don't use that tone with me. I'm not yours," Snape snapped, his hand already on his wand. "Leave my office, Professor Black." Sirius, not to be intimidated, had his wand drawn as well. "Locked up?" Professor McGonagall's voice was incredulous. The first game of the school year is about to start, and our Gryffindor seeker is confined? I'll speak with Severus about rescheduling the detention, Professor McGonagall stated firmly, her lips pursed in determination. Thank you, Professor, Harry replied, a wave of relief washing over him. He had tried to avoid confrontation with Snape in class, but after Snape discovered Harry's modifications to a potion recipe, a heated exchange led to Snape deducting points and assigning detention, coincidentally right before the match against Slytherin. Ron, ever the supportive friend, whispered to Harry, maybe Snape's worried Slytherin might actually lose this time. Harry, consumed by worry, found himself unable to eat. McLaggen approached, boasting arrogantly, Don't worry, I'll block every shot. Harry responded with a noncommittal nod, finding McLaggen's bravado off-putting. Unfortunately, Ron hadn't been selected as the goalkeeper. Hermione rushed over, her face etched with panic. It's terrible, Snape and Sirius are fighting. What? Harry was stunned. His godfather and Snape were in a duel. His concern propelled him into action. Where did you hear this? Professor McGonagall saw them. Katie Bell got caught in the crossfire, Hermione explained. Harry was dumbstruck. Katie, a key chaser for their team, was now hospitalized because of a spell gone awry during the professor's altercation, leaving her unable to play in the upcoming match. Slughorn intervened to manage the fallout, dismayed that two seasoned professors had let their dispute escalate to the point of endangering a student. Professor McGonagall, visibly shaken, would have suspected Snape of deliberate harm if she hadn't witnessed Sirius casting the spell. Potter, we need a replacement for Katie immediately, she urged, her dedication to Quidditch shining through her concern. Faced with the urgency of the situation, Harry had a moment of inspiration. With the incident leading to Katie's injury, Harry's detention was effectively cancelled. Me a chaser? Ron looked incredulously at Harry when informed of his new role. No jokes, Katie's out for now, and you've been with us through the tactics discussions. Plus, you were part of the team last year, Harry explained, trying to instill confidence in Ron. But I didn't make the cut this time, Ron admitted, though a part of him was thrilled at the opportunity despite his nerves. Training tonight at 7, Harry confirmed, leaving no room for debate. Ron's face lit up with a mix of pride and nervous excitement. Well, it seems I have no choice, he said, trying to mask his anxiety with humor. Seamus expressed his skepticism with a snort, and Dean went to inform Ginny of the news. While Harry's decision to include Ron on the team without a formal tryout sparked some murmurs of discontent, Harry was focused on the bigger picture. Finding a skilled and experienced replacement like Ron was practical under the circumstances. How they would fare against Slytherin, however, remained to be seen. Harry knew he had to steel himself for the challenges ahead. As the captain, his priority was to put the team's interests first. However, he hadn't anticipated that Ron's performance during the evening training would fall so short of his expectations. In a poorly executed pass, Ron accidentally hit Demelza Robbins, another chaser, in the mouth with the ball. Demelza stumbled, blood dripping from her mouth as she fell. I'm so sorry, Demelza. It was my fault. I'm really sorry. Ron called out to Demelza, rushing to explain himself, his voice tinged with panic. I was just too nervous. Ginny, already on edge due to recent annoyances with Blaze, flew down in a fury to inspect Demelza's swollen lips. You idiot, Ron! Look what you've done to her! She scolded her brother sharply. Harry quickly descended to tend to Demelza's injury, his tone firm as he addressed Ginny. You shouldn't call Ron an idiot. Remember, you're not the team captain, Ginny responded with a look of indignation. The training session had been far from successful, despite Harry's attempts to maintain morale and focus on their goal of defeating Slytherin. After the session, Harry found Ron in the changing room, his confidence shattered. It took some time, but Harry managed to bolster Ron's spirits. As they were returning to the castle, they stumbled upon Dean and Ginny in an empty hallway, locked in a passionate embrace. At that moment, Harry felt something inside him snap. Overwhelmed by a mix of emotions, he fantasized about casting a particularly nasty spell on Dean, one that would turn him into jelly. The intensity of his reaction surprised him, a testament to the complicated feelings swirling within. Chapter 444, The Weasley Argument. Hey! Ron's voice thundered through the corridor as he stumbled upon a sight that immediately set him off. "What's the matter?" Ginny, puzzled by her brother's sudden outburst, asked. Ron was livid, his voice booming with indignation. "I don't want to see my sister cuddling with someone in public." His tone suggested that Ginny had committed an unforgivable act. Ginny, quick-witted and sharp-tongued, retorted with equal fervor. "There was no one in this corridor until you barged in." Dean, Ginny's actual boyfriend, found himself in an awkward position, having been caught in a moment with his girlfriend by her brother. He offered Harry a sheepish smile, which Harry pointedly ignored. Harry was too caught up in his own turmoil, feeling as though a monstrous jealousy was clawing at his insides, urging him to confront Dean. "Let's go, Ginny," Dean suggested, trying to defuse the situation by pulling at Ginny's sleeve, hoping to lead her back to the common room. "You go," Ginny snapped, her anger barely contained. "I have a few words for my dear brother." Dean, realizing his presence was only exacerbating the situation, reluctantly left the scene. Ginny, tossing her fiery red hair back, faced Ron with a defiant glare. "Let's settle this once and for all. Ron, my personal life is none of your business." Ron, fueled by a mix of protective sibling instinct and irritation, perhaps exacerbated by earlier taunts on the Quidditch pitch or the shock of seeing his sister in an intimate moment, lashed out without thinking. "You think I want people to see my sister being what?" "What? Say it!" Ginny demanded, her anger reaching a boiling point as she drew her wand. "What am I? A flirt? Just because I've had 2 boyfriends?" Harry, trying to play peacemaker, interjected, though internally he found himself agreeing with Ron's sentiment. Ginny, sensing Harry's unspoken agreement with Ron, turned her fury towards him. "Oh, so it's fine for him to judge because he's never been close to anyone?" She continued her tirade, mocking Ron's lack of romantic experience and suggesting he was envious of others' relationships. Her words struck a nerve with Ron, highlighting his insecurities and feelings of inadequacy compared to his siblings. Ron, unable to contain his anger, drew his wand, ready to retaliate. "Do you even hear yourself?" Ginny, undeterred and fiercely proud, refused to back down. "Are you going to kiss a pig next, or do you have a picture of Aunt Muriel under your pillow?" Her taunts pushed Ron past his breaking point, and he launched a spell at Ginny. Harry, quick to react, intervened just in time to prevent disaster. In that tense moment, an unexpected figure appeared, turning the tide of the confrontation. Draco Malfoy, with his distinctive platinum blonde hair and green school uniform, stepped in, followed by his usual entourage. Malfoy, with a mix of curiosity and disdain, had come upon the scene by chance. "I was curious to see which unfortunate Gryffindor I'd find causing trouble before my date." Standing protectively behind Ginny, Malfoy faced off against Ron, his presence adding a new layer of complexity to the already heated argument. Ron, who had just been greeted by Blaze's angry fist, sneered back defiantly. "Percy knows about this. He'll make you regret it, Ron Weasley." "I thought you were nothing more than a coward, but it seems you do have the guts to stand up to your own sister," Malfoy said arrogantly, eyeing Ginny from head to toe. "Step aside, or you'll lose points." Ginny, momentarily taken aback by Malfoy's words, stood her ground, refusing to move. Malfoy then turned his attention to Harry, crossing his arms over his chest. "You can't even lead your team properly. What are you even trying to do, Potter?" As the captain of the Slytherin Quidditch team, Malfoy couldn't help but mock the internal strife within the Gryffindor ranks. "Blaze, just 2 more punches," Malfoy called out, cautioning Blaze to restrain himself to prevent Ron from being seriously injured. It was well known that Blaze had feelings for Ginny, and seeing Ron use magic against her had infuriated the Slytherins, who were not known for their patience. Ron, stunned by his own spell, was at a disadvantage, making it easier for Blaze to land his blows. "Ron!" Harry, realizing the gravity of the situation, rushed forward to intervene, pushing Blaze away. "Blaze!" Malfoy commanded, halting Blaze's advance. He looked at Harry with a mocking smile. Ron, realizing he was being beaten and ridiculed, was furious. "This is none of your business, Malfoy," he growled, struggling to break free. "Sorry, although I'm not fond of you Weasleys," Malfoy said with a sneer, "but Ginny Weasley is Percy's sister, and—" Without warning, Malfoy delivered a punch to Ron's stomach, causing him to double over in pain. Harry, enraged, attempted to intervene but was quickly restrained by Goyle and Crabbe, unable to move. Malfoy then grabbed Ron by the hair, forcing him to meet his gaze. "Don't let me hear any more inappropriate comments about Fleur, you worm," Malfoy hissed, releasing Ron's hair with a shove. Malfoy then signaled for Goyle and Crabbe to release Harry. "Who could possibly be worse than Slytherin's very own Draco Malfoy?" he taunted, making a threatening gesture across his throat as he addressed Harry. "Get ready to cry to your godfather, Potter." With those parting words, Malfoy left, feeling triumphant and looking forward to his date with Astoria, an opportunity that Daphne had worked hard to arrange. Harry glared at Malfoy's retreating figure, feeling a surge of anger. Ginny, too, had left to find her best friend Luna, leaving behind a cutting remark for her brother. Hermione was with Victor Krum, and you're the only one who finds it disgusting because you're less experienced than a 12-year-old. Ron's expression was one of fury, and Harry was also seething from Malfoy's mockery. Their anger was momentarily interrupted by the sound of Mrs. Norris's meow. Realizing they could be caught by Filch, they hurried upstairs, finding themselves on the 8th floor. "Hey, get out of here!" Ron snapped at a little girl, startling her and causing her to drop a bottle of toad eggs. The bottle shattered, and the sticky contents spilled across the floor, creating a mess that would take time to clean up. The little girl was on the verge of tears. Harry, still reeling from his encounter with Malfoy and haunted by images of Ginny and Dean together, tried to rationalize his feelings. "It's because she's Ron's sister. That's why you don't want to see her with Dean," he told himself. But his thoughts soon shifted to imagining himself in Dean's place, kissing Ginny. The thought brought a sense of satisfaction. In their confusion, Harry and Ron left the scene, leaving the little girl to deal with the mess. As she knelt down to pick up the sticky toad eggs, careful of the sharp glass edges, a voice offered help from under the stairs. The girl caught sight of Neville, who seemed to have grown significantly over the year. He approached and began to help the girls tidy up the scattered items. The commotion quickly attracted Filch, who hurried over and found the two students in the midst of cleanup. The girls were too intimidated to speak up, but Neville took the initiative, explaining to Filch, "We're just picking everything up. We'll head back as soon as we're done." Filch cast a reluctant glance at the badge adorning Neville's chest and finally conceded, "All right, but make it quick." In that moment, Mrs. Norris, ever the curious cat, leaped onto Neville's back, only to be scooped up into Filch's arms. Once everything was in order, the girl, her cheeks tinged with a blush, turned to Neville and expressed her gratitude. "Just be more careful next time," Neville responded, scratching his head in a bashful manner. In his attempt to clean up, he had inadvertently smeared toad eggs over his hands, some of which ended up in his hair. This sight elicited a chuckle from the girl, who, still slightly embarrassed, thanked him once more before hurrying off toward the tower. Neville, after ensuring everything was sorted, offered his thanks to Filch, who had been observing the scene. With a nod to the caretaker, Neville then turned and made his way back to the tower as well. Chapter 445, Ron's Unexpected Wisdom. John had never considered that Malfoy might occasionally do good deeds. He was in the Star Club, meticulously arranging his 9 magical doors, one of which could even lead to a dragon's cave upon opening. As he was about to craft more enchantments, the alarm of the Star Club blared. John wondered, could Voldemort be making his move already? Clutching his yew wand in his left hand, he approached the door with caution. Upon opening it, he was met with the sight of 2 girls, which led him to pause and ponder for a moment. After a short while, the girls, driven by curiosity, sat at the round table and reached out to touch a small golden figurine. "So you've found your way here?" John tapped the table, and a golden plate materialized, soon followed by crystal ice cream cups brimming with creamy chocolate ice cream. The girl picked up a spoon, noting it was still warm, making it effortless to slice through the ice cream. "Yes, it's a place that brings comfort," an ethereal voice echoed. Luna noticed the Quibbler on a shelf, along with a pair of specter specs. Ginny, who was also present, was experiencing her first visit to the legendary Star Club, a place that seemed like a palace filled with mysteries. As she tasted the dark chocolate ice cream, the sweetness melted on her tongue, bringing a sense of solace. Overhearing Ron's advice to Ginny, John expressed his astonishment. Ron might have overstepped a bit there. Noticing Ginny wasn't upset by Ron's words, John teased with a half-smile. "Aren't you worried I might have added something to the ice cream?" "You wouldn't," Ginny retorted confidently. "George and Fred say you're the best boss ever." "Please extend my thanks for their kind words," John replied with a shrug and a chuckle. "I was under the impression you might dislike me because of Harry." "I'm not that shallow," Ginny said softly, poking at her ice cream. "Percy mentioned you were the best friend one could have." Ginny stole a glance at John, puzzled by the magnetic charm he seemed to possess. Despite being a Slytherin, which the Weasley family traditionally viewed with skepticism, Ginny found herself reconsidering her stance. Percy, ambitious as he was, seemed genuinely fond of John, referring to him as a friend rather than a superior. This encounter further altered Ginny's perception of Slytherin. While Malfoy could be irritating, he showed a protective side towards his friend's sister. "I'll take Percy's compliment as high praise," John said with a smile, snapping his fingers. Mist began to drift down from the dome, enveloping the room in a dreamlike haze. "I haven't shared these wonders with many. If you wish to learn more about Fleur in the future, I'd be happy to show you," he offered. Ginny, slightly embarrassed at being caught speaking ill of Fleur, let out a snort. As the mist thickened, the room became enveloped in a soft white fog, leaving only their table in clear view. Luna, far from scared, eagerly asked, "Is this the beginning of an adventure?" "I hope you're wearing comfortable shoes, Luna," John replied, standing up with a chuckle, reminiscent of a brother preparing for a playful expedition. "It's been too long since our last adventure in the forest." He gestured towards the mist, adding, "Feel free to bring your ice cream. Just be careful not to spill it." Luna, unable to contain her excitement, grabbed her ice cream and rushed to pull Ginny to her feet, urging, "Come on, hurry!" Ginny barely managed to grab her own ice cream, her mind torn between the impending curfew and her curiosity for the unknown. Yet, the Gryffindor courage within her prevailed, and she followed Luna into the mist. John, with a slight smile, didn't look back. Opening his left hand, a golden flame emerged, guiding the girls through the fog. After navigating the mist for some time, Ginny's perception of the room's size expanded, likening it to a maze. The golden flame halted, and as Ginny caught up, the ground beneath them shifted unexpectedly, causing Luna to nearly maul. Ginny caught her, her eyes wide with disbelief as the flat floor transformed into uneven stones. As they looked up, the fog began to dissipate, revealing. He extinguished the golden flame and stood waiting for them at the cave's exit. With a light smile, he greeted, "Welcome to my kingdom." As the two approached, eager to ask questions, a huge white shadow darted past the entrance. Ginny's eyes widened in awe as the white shadow soared into the sky, revealing itself to be a majestic white dragon. They gazed in wonder as the valley below unfolded, filled with at least 1,000 dragons. Their eyes sparkled like fluorescent crystals, some dragons lying serenely while others retracted their wings. The fluorescent lights scattered across the valley resembled fireflies, creating a mesmerizing scene under a star-filled sky, unmarred by clouds. Under the celestial canopy, John observed Luna's enchantment with the breathtaking vista. A tender, loving smile graced his lips as the fluorescence and starlight danced across her beautiful face. In that moment, Ginny couldn't help but wish John were her brother, thinking how he would never berate her for having multiple boyfriends. The next day brought a strange dream to Harry. He dreamt of Ron chasing him with a batter's bat, a scenario he soon found preferable to dealing with the real Ron. Overnight, Ron had become irritable and reckless, his stern demeanor and sarcastic remarks leaving Hermione confused and upset. Harry found himself at a loss, attempting to lighten the mood by greeting Ginny, who, unlike her brother, seemed unaffected by Ron's mood swings. The tension escalated as Ron's temper flared, scaring first-year students and causing strife within the team. McLaggen openly criticized him, leading to a near altercation. The situation worsened when Perks, in a fit of anger, took his frustration out on Demirza. Harry questioned his decision to include Ron on the team, especially with a game approaching and no time to find a replacement. Despite discussing Ron's behavior and threatening to remove him from the team, Ron's attitude only worsened. As the match against Slytherin loomed, Harry pondered how to restore Ron's former demeanor. He considered provoking Ron into a competitive state, but realized it was futile without Ron's fighting spirit. Lying awake at night, Harry was struck by a sudden inspiration. On the morning of the match, the Gryffindor table buzzed with excitement. Despite the supportive atmosphere, Ron remained sullen. Harry offered him a choice of beverages, but Ron's response was lackluster. Hermione, fed up with Ron's moodiness, initially avoided sitting with them but paused to inquire about their well-being. As Harry handed Ron a glass of pumpkin juice, Hermione abruptly intervened, urging Ron not to drink it. Ron froze, caught off guard by her sudden outburst. This intervention marked a turning point, hinting at underlying tensions and concerns within the group. The narrative weaves a tale of friendship, rivalry, and the challenges of navigating personal growth amidst the magical and often perilous world of Hogwarts. As Ron was about to take a sip, he paused and looked up at Hermione alongside Harry. "Why?" Ron asked, having regained his composure. Hermione, with eyes wide in disbelief, stared at Harry. "You just put something in that drink," she accused. Harry feigned confusion. "What are you talking about?" "I saw everything," Hermione insisted, her eyes growing wider. "What you poured into Ron's drink just now, and you're still holding the bottle." "I really don't understand what you're implying," Harry said, continuing his act of confusion, while subtly letting Ron see him pocket the bottle. Hermione was appalled, unable to believe her friend would resort to cheating. She urgently warned Ron, "Ron, I'm warning you, don't drink that." But Ron, having pieced together Harry's actions, quickly grabbed the glass and downed it in one gulp. "Don't tell me what to do, Hermione," he retorted. Hermione, shocked and angry, whispered to Harry, "I can't believe you do this. It's against the rules to use Felix Felicis in Quidditch." Harry maintained his pretense of ignorance. Time was ticking, and the Gryffindor team made their way towards the stadium. "Lucky with the weather, aren't we?" Harry remarked to Ron. "Yeah," Ron replied, still appearing downcast and somewhat feeble. Just then, Ginny approached them, excitement in her voice. "You guys won't believe what happened. Draco Malfoy is on sick leave." Ron and Harry were taken aback. "Is he sick? With what?" Harry asked incredulously. Ginny smirked, clearly pleased. "It seems he's been hexed. I bet Daphne Greengrass is behind it. Malfoy was caught by Daphne on a date with Astoria yesterday and ended up being strung up." Ron's spirits lifted at the thought. "We're so lucky. I didn't see this coming." He leaned in to whisper to Harry, "That pumpkin juice of mine, did you?" Harry simply raised his eyebrows and diverted the conversation to the game, which only excited Ron further. With Malfoy, Slytherin's seeker and captain, out of the picture, Slytherin's team was without its backbone. Their excitement was so palpable that they didn't even inquire about the new Slytherin seeker. Changing into their team uniforms, they walked out of the locker room with high spirits. In the stands, the students were clearly divided. A sea of red and gold cheered loudly, while the green and silver supporters were noticeably quieter, likely having heard the news about Malfoy. Harry's lips curled into a smile as he caught sight of Luna in the Ravenclaw section. Instead of her usual eccentric attire, she held a scarf adorned with a snake's head and tail. "I'm feeling incredibly lucky today," Ron said, barely containing his excitement. Then, the Slytherin team emerged, slightly delayed, which only added to the anticipation. As they appeared, the previously subdued crowd erupted in cheers. "Cheers to our king!" Blaise Zabini's voice thundered. The Slytherin students raised their wands, and green smoke billowed across the field, coalescing into the Slytherin emblem. An emerald snake formed from the smoke, hissing and spitting at the Gryffindor supporters. "For glory!" The unified chant from the Slytherin supporters drowned out the applause from the rest of the audience. Chapter 446, The Overwhelming Presence of Slytherin. Was it a lucky day? Far from it. This was shaping up to be the worst day ever. The oppressive aura that filled the stadium chilled the Gryffindor team to the bone. A figure emerged from the shadows of the locker room passage, his presence commanding attention. With black hair and brown eyes, his indifferent expression, usually reserved for the high seats of the stands, now took center stage. Clad in the green uniform of his team, he wore it as if it were a royal robe, and the firebolt broom in his hand might as well have been a scepter. His mere presence was enough to send the morale of every Slytherin through the roof, drawing the focus of the entire audience. Even Harry Potter couldn't compete with the attention he garnered. John Wick. No, how could it? Ron, who had just moments ago been talking about their luck, couldn't contain his disbelief. Indeed, how could it be him? The king who reigned supreme, why would he descend into the fray and join the ranks of his followers? John had mentioned that if Malfoy hadn't been incapacitated by Daphne's hex, he wouldn't have considered playing. It seemed Daphne had come to realize that Malfoy was not up to the task either. Thus, John had stepped in to fill the role of Seeker, a position only he and Malfoy were permitted to hold when it came to flying firebolts for Slytherin. As for their strategy, the trident tactic would suffice. With John on the field, the morale of Slytherin's players skyrocketed, and the intimidation factor against their opponents was immeasurable. The psychological impact on Gryffindor was palpable. Approaching Madame Hooch, John's gaze met Harry's across the field. Behind him, a sea of green and silver supporters roared, their enthusiasm undiminished. The pressure was palpable on Harry's side. After rallying his team with a cheer, Harry approached for the customary handshake. Madame Hooch announced, "Captains, shake hands." John offered a chuckle. "I didn't expect to meet under these circumstances." He extended his hand, and Harry, despite the slight moisture in his palm, grasped it firmly. Harry bolstered his spirits, reminding himself, "It's okay, this is Quidditch." Yes, Quidditch. He was the captain of Gryffindor, and Quidditch wasn't a game for the faint-hearted. With renewed confidence, Harry reminded himself that he had faced Malfoy before and emerged victorious. John's inexperience in Quidditch wouldn't be a deterrent. "Mount your brooms and await my whistle," Madame Hooch instructed, beginning the countdown. 3, 2, 1. At the sound of the whistle, both teams kicked off, ascending into the sky. John took to the air with grace, the firebolt's unruly speed tamed under his control. He observed as Slytherin secured the quaffle first. In the stands, Ernie Macmillan, the well-known Hufflepuff, couldn't contain his excitement at John's participation. "They're off." No one anticipated the captain of Slytherin would be a last-minute replacement, much less that it would be John Wick, he commented, his voice filled with excitement as he announced, "Slytherin's Urquhart has the quaffle. Watch out for the bludger." A bludger, sent flying by Goyle, narrowly missed Ron's head, eliciting grins from the two imposing Slytherin players. Urquhart, showcasing his flying prowess, initiated the trident tactic. Ginny, in a swift maneuver, attempted to intercept, but Urquhart cleverly passed the quaffle to Astoria. "Stop her!" McLaggen shouted, assuming the role of captain. "Shut up!" Ron retorted, focusing on his attempt to reclaim the quaffle from Astoria, who skillfully kept it just out of reach. "Slytherin scores!" Astoria Greengrass breaks through Gryffindor's defense. The announcement came just as Harry, who had been searching for the golden snitch, turned his attention back to the game. He saw McLaggen berating Ron, hoping the altercation wouldn't distract them further. With a heavy heart, Harry resumed his search for the snitch, aware that the situation was looking grim for Gryffindor, or, despite Ginny's exceptional skills as a chaser. In a thrilling moment that slightly redeemed Gryffindor, Trident had showcased his skills. Urquhart passed the ball to their number 3 chaser, Vasai, who was hotly pursued by Demirza. With a burst of speed, Vasai managed to score a goal through McLaggen's defense. "Another goal? The score is 120-50. Ernie announced with excitement, much to Professor McGonagall's chagrin, who expressed her displeasure with a pointed look. The Slytherin stands erupted in their familiar chant, celebrating their ambition and strength, further intensifying the pressure on Harry. He knew the game's outcome rested on his shoulders. In a tense moment, Hitter Perks launched a bludger at Astoria, who narrowly dodged it, causing a scratch on his broom. The ball slipped from Astoria's grasp and was quickly claimed by Ginny, who dashed forward with determination. Ernie's commentary added a light-hearted note, comparing the beauty of Ginny and Astoria, even as the game's intensity didn't wane. Draco Malfoy's threats towards Ernie for his comments added a layer of drama to the match. Ginny's successful goal did not sit well with Astoria, prompting Goyle and Crabbe to target her with a bludger. Their attack was ruthless, with one bludger narrowly missing Demirza and another injuring Ron, who appeared to be in severe pain. Amidst the chaos, John, a newcomer to Quidditch, found his interest piqued. His competitive spirit awakened. He surged forward, becoming a blur on the field. Ernie speculated excitedly that John might have spotted the golden snitch, prompting Harry to give chase. The race for the snitch was on, with John and Harry speeding across the sky. John's feint left Harry momentarily fooled, giving John a significant lead. However, Harry's determination saw him quickly recover and resume the chase. John's daring dive towards the ground was a spectacle, leaving the crowd in suspense. His maneuver to capture the snitch was nothing short of spectacular, displaying agility and precision that left everyone in awe. With a swift adjustment, he landed gracefully, securing the snitch and completing a remarkable play that would be remembered for years to come. This match was not just a display of skill, but a testament to the spirit of competition and the sheer unpredictability of Quidditch, leaving both players and spectators breathless with excitement. With effortless grace, John Wick captured the snitch, his movements so fluid that time itself seemed to pause, leaving everyone in awe. Standing atop his firebolt, he faced the wind with a serene smile and declared, "Now you can cheer." The tension that had gripped the stadium was instantly released, and the stands vibrated with the excitement of the crowd. In the Slytherin section, chants celebrating their house's glory began to rise, accompanied by bursts of green fireworks as everyone erupted in cheers. Ernie, coming to his senses, exclaimed in a tone mixed with shock and disbelief, "John has caught the snitch and clinched the game. It's unbelievable. From such an angle, and yet he emerges unscathed." He continued, admiration clear in his voice. Without a single stain or speck of dirt, he remains dignified and self-assured, always exuding a regal presence. John Wick. As the firebolt's speed decreased, John stood confidently on it, arms spread wide against the backdrop of a sea of green and silver. Green fireworks and ribbons soared through the air, Luna's scarf fluttered loudly, and a thunderous roar of "Glory to Slytherin" shook the stands. Harry ceased his flight, and the Gryffindor team members descended slowly to the ground. They looked up at the figure in the air with a mixture of respect and awe, as if they were subjects beholding their king. The final score was set at 310 to 120. Indeed, glory to the Slytherins. Through his actions, John Wick had made a statement to everyone present. "I am glory." Chapter 447, The Vampire at the Banquet. No one could understand why John's flying skills were so superior. The Gryffindor team trudged back to their dressing room, heads hung low in defeat. Ron, in a state of disbelief, muttered, "It shouldn't have ended like this. Why did this happen?" He had been convinced that after consuming the Felicity elixir, victory was assured. Could it be that Slughorn's Felix Felicis was a dud? Hermione burst into the room, clutching a Gryffindor scarf, at a loss for words to console her friends. The sting of defeat by Slytherin was bad enough, but losing to John felt almost inevitable. She tentatively approached and asked, "Harry, Ron, are you okay?" "Not at all," Ron replied, his voice choked with emotion. "What now, Hermione? Are you here to mock us? Even with the Felix Felicis, we couldn't win." His frustration was palpable. After drinking the pumpkin juice, Ron had briefly believed in his luck, especially upon hearing that Malfoy was absent. However, John's performance had boosted Slytherin's morale to unprecedented levels. Even Urquhart, who had taken a bludger to the nose, simply wiped away the blood and continued playing as if nothing had happened. They weren't just facing a team, they were up against a force of nature. Slytherin played with unmatched speed, precision, and power. They seemed invincible. "I'm sorry, Ron," Hermione, Harry said, his voice heavy with regret. He pulled out the bottle with the wax seal from his pocket and admitted, "I never added it to the drink. I wanted Ron to believe I did, knowing you were watching, Hermione." "Why?" Ron asked, genuinely puzzled. "Why would you do that?" Harry lowered his head, ashamed. "I wanted you to regain your confidence, to make you feel lucky." He braced himself for Ron's anger, expecting a violent outburst. However, the anticipated storm never came. Instead, Ron leaned against the locker and whispered an apology. Harry looked up to see Ron's face filled with remorse. "Sorry, mate, I shouldn't have doubted you," Ron said, realizing his mistake. "Can you forgive me, Captain?" Harry was taken aback by Ron's response. After a moment of silent understanding, they embraced, letting go of the tension that had built up between them. Of course, Ron, Harry replied, but we can't slack off in our training. Their reconciliation brought smiles to their faces, burying any lingering doubts. Hermione, who had been watching silently, was caught off guard when Ron turned to her with a look of self-reproach. The way he had acted recently made him ashamed to face her. After letting go of Harry, Ron approached Hermione, fidgeting nervously. "I'm sorry, Hermione," he said, his apology sincere. Looking up, Ron asked shyly, "Are you going to the library?" The anxiety vanished from Hermione's face, replaced by a radiant smile that struck Ron like a hammer to the heart. "Are you going to the Christmas party with me?" Hermione asked, her smile brightening even more. Ron's heart raced, and he managed a sheepish grin. "Of course." Harry watched his friends make amends, feeling a sense of relief. Despite the loss in the Quidditch match, the outcome wasn't all bad. As the team prepared to face the backlash from Gryffindor, they braced themselves for ridicule and scorn. Taking a deep breath, Harry exchanged supportive glances with Ron and Ginny before stepping out of the locker room. To their surprise, they were met not with jeers, but with applause and cheers from their housemates. "We lost the game," Harry said, bewildered by the unexpected support. Parvati Patil shouted back, "Don't be silly. It's not like we haven't lost before, you dolt." Before Harry could respond, Dean and Siamis lifted him onto their shoulders, celebrating their effort against an exceptional opponent. "Please, that was John Wick out there," they said, acknowledging the formidable challenge they had faced. The team realized that their efforts hadn't gone unnoticed. Despite the injuries and the loss, their house was proud of them. The sense of unity and support within Gryffindor was a comforting balm to their bruised spirits. He feared becoming the subject of ridicule, the captain who led his team to defeat in his first match. Yet Gryffindor demonstrated through their actions that while young people may chase after fame, their emotions are genuine. They do not scorn those who give their all, regardless of the outcome. Gryffindor embodies more than just quarrels and jokes. At its core lies bravery. Their courage and boldness distinguish them. "Anyone up for a party in the common room?" someone shouted, sparking unanimous agreement. When Harry was finally released from the celebratory crowd, he noticed Ginny's determined gaze. "We'll win it back next time," she stated with conviction. Harry, moved by her resolve and the earnest look in her eyes, agreed. Next time, we'll win. In truth, their loss was minimal. Excluding the Snitch's 150 points, they were only behind by 40 points across 4 matches, a gap that had narrowed from 70 to 40 points. If not for John, victory might have been theirs. In the school infirmary, Malfoy, with his neck in a brace, was incredulous. "John won like that?" he asked as Goyle and Crabbe confirmed, and Astoria offered him a slice of cake from the victory celebration. Malfoy, reflecting on his earlier offer for John to join Quidditch, an offer John declined, couldn't help but feel frustrated. "John, challenge me," he said between bites of cake, his tone a mix of anger and disbelief. Seeking some privacy, Malfoy signaled Goyle and Crabbe to leave him and Astoria alone, but they seemed oblivious. Exasperated, Malfoy resorted to physically nudging Goyle and muttered about their need to leave. Goyle, nursing his side, explained, "Daphne made us promise to stay with Astoria, threatening us with a fate similar to yours if we left her alone." Malfoy could only sigh in resignation. Having recovered from his injury just before the Christmas break, Malfoy's first order of business was to confront John. "You claimed you couldn't fly?" he demanded, seeking some form of justification. John, unfazed, simply replied, "I never said I couldn't. You assumed." Malfoy, upon reflection, realized his error and indignation. As the Christmas break approached, Slughorn's party was the talk of the school. Known for his exclusive gatherings, Slughorn extended invitations to select students. John, demonstrating a spell he learned in Transfiguration class, playfully changed the color of Malfoy's eyebrows, highlighting Malfoy's lack of aptitude in the subject. Luna Lovegood greeted John, who immediately noticed her unchanged eyebrows. After a brief exchange, Luna mentioned she was attending the party at Harry's invitation. John, unfazed, simply said he'd invite someone else, prompting Luna to depart cheerfully. Malfoy, witnessing the exchange, was puzzled. "Why invite someone else?" he asked, urging John to invite Daphne instead. John, with a hint of amusement, informed him that Daphne didn't need an invitation to attend. Malfoy, taken aback, remarked on Daphne's beauty, ranking her second in Slytherin only to Astoria. Despite this, John decided to extend an invitation to Daphne, ensuring her attendance at the party. At 8 p.m., John and Daphne made their way to the headmaster's office. Unlike some, Slughorn maintained a strong work ethic and chose not to occupy public spaces for private gatherings. Daphne, who had accompanied Slughorn to the last banquet, had donned a stunning silver dress for the occasion. The dress accentuated her fair skin and complemented her blonde hair beautifully. As they entered, laughter, music, and lively conversations filled the air. The office appeared much larger than usual, a clear indication that a no-trace stretching charm had been applied. The decor was lavish, with hangings in emerald green, crimson, and gold adorning the ceiling and walls, giving the space the appearance of a grand tent. Indeed, it was a magical tent from Silverhand Products, showcasing Slughorn's adaptability and flair for the dramatic. The banquet hosted many guests who were not affiliated with the school, a strategic choice by Slughorn to maintain the privacy of the event. This gathering served as an invaluable opportunity for students, particularly those in their 6th and 7th years, to network with professionals from various industries, showcasing their talents and potential. Being invited by Slughorn was a testament to an individual's promising qualities or potential utility. Upon seeing John, Slughorn greeted him with enthusiastic surprise. "John, come in, come in. I have quite a few friends here who are eager to meet you." His gaze then shifted to Daphne, complimenting her with genuine warmth. "Absolutely stunning, Daphne, just like your mother." It was a personal touch, as Slughorn had also taught Daphne's mother years ago. As John followed Slughorn through the crowd, his attention was immediately drawn to a particular individual. "This is Elder Walpole, one of my former students. He's the author of Blood Brothers, I Live Among Vampires, and this is his friend, Bloody," Slughorn introduced. John's eyes fixed on the tall, thin man with pronounced dark circles under his eyes, who exuded an air of languor and disinterest. The presence of actual vampires at the event was both intriguing and slightly unnerving. Chapter 448, The Escape of the Romanian Fire Dragon. In the myriad tales that weave through Western lore, witches, werewolves, and vampires frequently take center stage. Despite their often menacing portrayals, these characters underscore their significant presence in the Muggle imagination. Blood Brothers, My Life Among Vampires offers a glimpse into the societal aspects of vampires seldom explored in literature, John remarked, his insight lighting up Elder's eyes. There's a unique joy in receiving praise for one's work, especially when it's evident the commendation comes from a place of genuine engagement. Your book provides a perspective much closer to the authentic vampire lifestyle than the wizard-centric traveling with the vampire, John continued, skillfully weaving in a comparison with the works of his old acquaintance, Gilderoy Lockhart. Elder, with a modest smile, responded, "I've always found Lockhart's books enlightening, though our focuses may differ." Despite Elder's more literary leanings compared to Lockhart's adventurous tales, the comparison filled him with a sense of pride. Slughorn observed John's effortless mingling with Elder, marveling at the young man's adept social skills. The introduction of mead into the conversation only brightened Slughorn's spirits further. Meanwhile, Shuini, a vampire among them, found little interest in the food, his attention momentarily captured by the sight of a passerby's neck, a reminder of the eternal struggle with his nature. The conversation naturally drifted to the topic of werewolves, another group often misunderstood and maligned. "I've always believed werewolves to be no different from wizards," John mused, drawing Shuini's attention. "Like the stories told among muggles, wizards, werewolves, and vampires are all unique yet equal beings." John elaborated on the origins of werewolves, born from a curse, and highlighted the involuntary nature of their transformations. "Why should we demean and harm those who are victims themselves?" he questioned, challenging the stigma surrounding werewolves. "The curse they bear cannot be eradicated, only managed, and with the advent of Wolfsbane Potion, the threat they pose can be almost entirely mitigated." Elder, finding a kindred spirit in John, voiced his agreement loudly, drawing nods and murmurs of assent from the gathered crowd. The conversation sparked a broader discussion on the treatment of werewolves, with John's compassionate stance earning him the spotlight among the attendees. By the time Harry arrived, John had already become the focal point of the gathering, engaging in lively discussions about the Potions Association and recent ministry reforms concerning werewolves. Slughorn, realizing he had initiated this gathering, greeted Harry warmly, his gaze drifting to Luna's sequined dress with a mix of surprise and amusement. It was clear that Slughorn, with his connections and influence, could easily rally a formidable network around him. John's interactions that evening, ranging from meeting the editor-in-chief of Master of Practical Potions to mingling with influential figures from various sectors, underscored the importance of building relationships for future endeavors. As the evening unfolded, the conversation took an unexpected turn towards the thrilling escape of a Romanian fire dragon, a topic that captivated everyone's imagination and set the stage for tales of adventure and intrigue. Werner Hall, a dragon trainer in Romania and a former student of Professor Slughorn, shared his concerns with a somber expression. "It's unfortunate, but nearly half of Romania's fire dragons have escaped," he lamented. "Didn't you find a way to prevent this, Werner?" Slughorn inquired, his curiosity piqued by the plight of his former student who had chosen the challenging path of dragon rearing. Werner sighed, the weight of the situation evident in his voice. "It's not feasible to confine dragons in cages indefinitely. They need vast spaces to thrive, something beyond our current capabilities," he explained. The dragon trainers were facing a dire situation. With the majority of dragon-derived materials sourced from Romania, the escape of the fire dragons not only threatened their livelihood, but also caused a significant disruption in the market. Prices for dragon blood and other materials had skyrocketed, affecting various industries, including Hogwarts. The scarcity forced the school to ration dragonhide gloves in herbology class, much to the dismay of potion masters who relied heavily on these materials. Slughorn offered words of comfort to his distressed former student. "It's a tough situation indeed." Werner, however, was more concerned about a deeper, more ominous issue. "The greatest threat isn't the escape itself," he revealed, his tone grave. "An experienced dragon trainer in Romania warned us that if the dragons are not in heat, the situation could worsen." Intrigued, Slughorn leaned in. "Why is that?" he asked, always eager to learn of new developments. Werner's face darkened as he shared the alarming news. "The dragons have crowned their own king. This phenomenon, unseen for 1,000 years, has led to their mass exodus." The room fell silent, the gravity of Werner's words sinking in. Slughorn, momentarily taken aback, finally spoke. "Incredible! A dragon king. It reminds me of Merlin, who was said to communicate with fire dragons." John, who had been quietly listening, suddenly appeared contemplative at the mention of a dragon king. Slughorn, noticing the change, asked, "What's on your mind, John?" With a faint smile, John replied, "I just realized a friend of mine has left." Slughorn, misunderstanding, chuckled. "Ah, Draco Malfoy. Yes, I saw him leave with Miss Greengrass." Daphne, who had been searching for her sister, looked alarmed at the mention of Draco and Astoria's departure. Realizing his mistake, Slughorn tried to backtrack, but Daphne had already rushed out in pursuit. John excused himself and stepped outside, only to be stopped by Snape's distinctive voice. "What are your intentions, John Wick?" Snape inquired, his tone laced with suspicion. John faced Snape, his expression unreadable. "You misunderstand, Professor. My actions are merely social." He then casually mentioned Sirius's appointment as the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor, suggesting Dumbledore's influence, which visibly irked Snape. "Enough, Mr. Wick," Snape cut him off sharply. John shrugged and continued on his way, leaving Snape behind. As he passed a classroom, he noticed Daphne peering through the door. Approaching quietly, he discovered the reason for her concern. Inside, Malfoy and Astoria were sharing a moment over cream cakes, an unexpectedly tender scene under the moonlight. Malfoy's gentle gesture of wiping cream from Astoria's lips revealed a softer side, leaving John to ponder the complexities of human relationships. In the quiet classroom, where only 2 souls were present, the air was filled with a blend of scents. The sweet, slightly greasy aroma of cream mingled with the delicate fragrance of pear blossoms emanating from the girl's hair. Astoria, equally nervous, stole a glance at Malfoy, only to find their gazes unexpectedly meeting. A whirlwind of emotions, panic, Ecstasy, warmth, swept through them, causing both to quickly avert their eyes. In that moment, the seeds of an unspoken love began to sprout. Malfoy, in an attempt to break the tension, looked towards the window and remarked, "The moonlight is so beautiful tonight." His words hung in the air, carrying an unspoken sentiment that seemed to say, "Yes, the moonlight is beautiful, but not as beautiful as you." The moon's glow stretched their shadows across the floor, intertwining them. Astoria lifted her gaze, her eyes meeting Malfoy's in a moment of unguarded honesty. Their hearts seemed to beat in unison, the sound growing louder as their connection deepened. Beneath the moonlit windowsill, their reflections merged as one. A thought crossed Malfoy's mind, a realization that there was something in this world softer than cotton, something that could be felt with a mere touch. Unable to resist the allure, he found a trace of cream on his lips, a remnant of their earlier closeness. Savoring the taste, he smiled at Astoria, a silent invitation in his eyes, and leaned in once more, drawn to the sweetness that lingered between them. Chapter 449, Lockhart's Christmas Vigil. The festivities at Slughorn's party had come to an end. John shook his head, a mix of amusement and disbelief coloring his tone. "I could perhaps overlook the first incident, but to repeat the mistake a second time." Malfoy's lips were swollen to the size of sausages, rendering his speech nearly incomprehensible. "I had no idea Daphne was lurking outside," he lamented, the sting of the wasp curse still fresh. Despite his efforts to rationalize, the thought of Daphne waiting to ambush him was too much. Desperation seeped into his voice as he asked John, "Is there no hope for me and Astoria in this lifetime?" John glanced at Malfoy, noting the lack of pretense in his demeanor. "Don't fret, Daphne has given her blessing," he revealed, casually passing a letter to Basil. Malfoy's confusion was palpable. "How come I wasn't informed?" he blurted out, then, with a puzzled look, added, "She consented to cast the wasp curse on me?" "I was on my way out when you decided to overstep," John explained, having witnessed Daphne's transition from sheer frustration to taking action. He pointed out that Malfoy had indeed provoked her. After a previous close call where Daphne nearly snapped Malfoy's neck, she had refrained from further retaliation. Gradually, she came to accept Malfoy as her sister's suitor. Despite Malfoy's irritating tendencies, his status and character made him a suitable match. Having discussed the matter with Astoria and understanding her feelings, Daphne chose not to interfere further, provided Malfoy remained sincere and avoided trouble until graduation. "You were quite bold that day," John remarked with disdain. "Did you not think you were asking for trouble?" Malfoy was mortified, not expecting his actions to have been so transparent. "Could you possibly restore my lips to their normal state?" he asked John, hopeful. After a moment's consideration, John sneered, "Off with you." Malfoy had no choice but to return to the Malfoy manor, his lips still grotesquely swollen. As the Christmas holidays approached, John decided against staying at Hogwarts. The allure of the neighboring old janitor's tales was too strong to resist, and he left the school without hesitation. The newspapers were abuzz with headlines: "Romanian dragon escapes again, many dragon trainers injured. The mysterious man strikes again, Gilderoy Lockhart attacked, slightly injured, but repels assailants. Gilderoy Lockhart to guard Nocturne Alley this Christmas. The Ministry of Magic honors Gilderoy Lockhart with the Medal of Valor. Debate on werewolf rights intensifies among scholars." At Silverhand's Johnny's store, John casually flipped through the newspapers. "Lockhart's in the intensive care unit at Silverhand Hospital," Tong Mi reported. "Should we arrange an interview with a reporter?" "Keep Rita Skeeter away. She's been overexposed lately," John instructed, his attention returning to the article about the Romanian dragon escape. "Strengthen our defenses and kick off the Christmas event," he said calmly. Tong Mi nodded, understanding the directive, and left to make the necessary arrangements. With Christmas drawing near, John was busy planning a crossover event between Nocturne Alley and Diagon Alley. Perhaps a Quidditch match would be a good draw, he mused, considering the appeal of hosting a game between the two locations. The amusement park project was also underway. Despite the magical assistance, the large required area meant that construction would take some time. However, it was nearing completion and was slated to open by Easter at the latest. 3 of the 5 news stories were directly related to John. The orchestrated attack on Lockhart was his doing, a calculated move to craft a hero narrative. Lockhart's subsequent hospitalization had the unintended effect of boosting sales for products he endorsed by a significant percentage. Lockhart's assignment to guard Nocturne Alley was another strategic move, designed to showcase the area's safety. The Ministry of Magic's awarding of the Medal of Valor to Lockhart, however, was not John's doing. It seemed the ministry was keen on boosting public morale and creating a figure of security, with Lockhart's actions conveniently fitting their narrative. The dragon trainers have handled their situation. Those wizards are not to be underestimated, John mused, his fingers absently creasing the newspaper as he pondered the implications. At the Slughorn party, John was taken aback by the dragon trainers' knowledge about dragons. Indeed, as an institution specializing in dragon research, it's surprising you weren't aware, John remarked, his gaze lowering thoughtfully. However, it's fortunate we've resolved it. The incident involving the dragon trainer who, after following a fire dragon, was ambushed by a black dragon, resulted in 3 trainers sustaining injuries, with one suffering severe burns. John reflected on the incident, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the table. After a moment of meditation, a fleeting expression of resignation crossed his face. Let's have someone else handle it, he decided. It wasn't necessary for him to personally intervene in the Romanian dragon burn incident. A donation would suffice. Standing on the balcony, overlooking the lively Nocturne Alley, John observed families with their children enjoying the festive atmosphere. The street was adorned with ice lanterns and magical animals sculpted from snow. In a nearby garden, a play was being rehearsed, Lockhart's Wandering with Werewolves. "My lord, old Jack has come to visit," Tang Mi announced, interrupting his thoughts. Old Jack, now a member of Parliament, had brought his youngest child, Tai Luo, with him. His newfound status had bolstered his lifelong mission to combat discrimination against werewolves. "Your Excellency, Silver Hand," old Jack greeted with respect. Tai Luo looked up at John with admiration. Old Jack often reminded his children of the better life werewolves now enjoyed, thanks to Lord Johnny Silverhand. "It's a pleasure to see you before Christmas, old Jack," John said, his voice muffled by the silver mask he wore, as he gestured for his guests to sit. "Is this visit about the school?" John inquired. Establishing a school in a werewolf community was straightforward, but securing experienced teachers and students was the real challenge. John planned to have old Jack's children teach at the werewolf school after their graduation from Hogwarts. Old Jack chuckled. "The school is thriving, and our community is welcoming werewolf families from across the globe." John, glancing at a newspaper on the table, asked, "Is this because of the recent report?" Caught off guard, old Jack nodded sheepishly. "The outside world still harbors many doubts about our community," he admitted. As they discussed the challenges faced by the werewolf community, old Jack's tone turned somber. "My son, let His Excellency see," he said, prompting Tai Luo to reveal her back to John, who was taken aback by the sight of a severe, blackened wound. "Prejudice won't vanish overnight, old Jack," John stated solemnly, "but I assure you, those responsible will face justice." Old Jack, moved to tears, expressed his gratitude. John approached Tai Luo, whose eyes were brimming with tears, and asked, "Do you believe in me?" "My grandfather says you're the best person in the world. I believe him," Tai Luo replied. John then performed a healing gesture, causing the galleons in his hand to vanish and the wound on Tai Luo's back to heal completely, leaving her skin unblemished. After thanking John profusely, old Jack prepared to leave, but not before sharing a piece of news that might interest John. "The giant in the mountains has made contact with someone," he revealed, hinting at a new development that could have implications for their community. John acknowledged the information with a nod, indicating his understanding and interest in the matter. After sending old Jack on his way, John reached out to Tang Mi, requesting an investigation into the recent attack on the werewolf community. Within a day, Tang Mi returned with his findings. It appeared that the attack was orchestrated by fellow werewolves, driven by deep-seated hatred, and had been incited to target their isolated peers. John's brow furrowed in concern. "Incited? Do we have any leads on who's behind this?" he inquired. "Unfortunately, it's unclear. The instigators managed to keep their identities hidden from those they manipulated, Tangmi reported. John nodded, his fingers absently tracing the contours of his ring as he pondered the situation. This was no mere act of discrimination. Could it be the remnants of Voldemort's regime, or perhaps the Saints of Grindelwald stirring up the animosity among werewolves? The recent report he had reviewed flashed through his mind, suggesting a potential lead in his investigation. Meanwhile, Weasley's wizard wheezes buzzed with activity, thriving amidst the Christmas holiday cheer. Despite the festive season, the proprietors, George and Fred, had returned home, leaving the bustling shop behind. John's thoughts lingered on the complexity of the situation. The deliberate provocation of werewolves hinted at a larger, more sinister plot. Whoever was orchestrating this had a deep understanding of the prejudices and fears that plagued the magical community. It was a manipulation of hatred, a tool wielded with precision to serve a darker purpose. Determined to uncover the truth, John knew he had to delve deeper. The connections between the werewolves' plight and the shadows of the past were becoming increasingly apparent. The remnants of Voldemort's followers and the ideology of Grindelwald's saints were both steeped in the exploitation of fear and division. Unraveling this mystery required not just identifying the culprits, but understanding their motives and the endgame they envisioned. As the investigation progressed, John remained vigilant, aware that the path ahead was fraught with danger and deception. The stakes were high, not just for the werewolf community, but for the entire magical world. The specter of past conflicts loomed large, a reminder of the cost of hatred and the enduring struggle for peace and unity. Chapter 450, Competition in Two Alleys. This Christmas, the Weasley family welcomed back Charlie Weasley, the second eldest brother. With a broad, amiable face, weathered and freckled to a near brownish black, Charlie's muscular arms were a testament to his rugged lifestyle. Despite the winter chill, he sported a sleeveless padded jacket, revealing arms marred by flame-induced scars. These very wounds were the reason for his return during the festive season. Mrs. Weasley, tears streaming down her face, embraced her son tightly. Charlie, bearing a striking resemblance to his mother, was shorter and stockier than his brothers, but still towered over Mrs. Weasley in her arms. "I can't believe something like this could happen, let alone to you," Mrs. Weasley said, her voice tinged with fear and disbelief. "It's okay, Mom," Charlie comforted her, patting her back gently. Harry, spending Christmas at the Burrow and also at Sirius Black's old house, was curious about Charlie's unexpected return. Ron, greeting his brother, noticed the scars on Charlie's arm and asked in astonishment, "When did you get these whitened?" "It's not whitening, Ron," Charlie explained with a light chuckle, extending his arms for a closer look. "These are burns from a dragon. If you look closely, you'll see it's not white, but scarred skin from the flames." Harry could only imagine the excruciating pain Charlie must have endured. Noticing the time, Charlie muttered about needing to apply some ointment again. As his bare skin brushed against his clothes, he winced in pain. "I'll help you," Ron offered, rushing to assist his brother. Harry joined in, and together they applied a cool, oyster shell-shaped ointment to Charlie's scars, eliciting a moan of relief from him. The Weasley twins, Fred and George, arrived, and upon seeing Charlie's condition, offered their assistance with a playful grin. "Need burn medicine? Weasley's wizard wheezes at your service," they joked. "George," one corrected when mistaken for the other, a common mix-up. Charlie, with a smile, replied, "Can't you, for once, spare me the embarrassment, brothers?" Bill, the eldest Weasley sibling, also returned home, accompanied by his girlfriend Fleur. Both were taken aback by Charlie's appearance. "I was tracking a fire dragon when it discovered me," Charlie explained, hissing in pain as Ron accidentally grazed his skin. "Easy, Ron." "Why were you following a fire dragon?" Bill inquired, concerned. Before Charlie could respond, Harry interjected, "Dragon King." The room fell silent, everyone turning to Harry in surprise. "At Slughorn's party, a dragon trainer mentioned it," Harry clarified. Charlie nodded, acknowledging the reference. "You mean Werner? He often speaks of his mentor." "Dragon King?" Ron pressed for clarification. "Exactly," Charlie confirmed. "The Master of Dragons, their leader. Dragon trainers in Romania believe the mass escape of dragons is due to them having their own king." The conversation drew the attention of more guests at the burrow, including Lupin and Sirius. Charlie shared the harrowing tale of underestimating a Hungarian horntail's vigilance, which led to his injuries. The mention of the Hungarian horntail stirred memories in those present, but the discussion was cut short by Mrs. Weasley, who announced it was time to prepare for dinner. Ginny, puzzled, asked, "Why not use magical healing?" "The dragon's fire is toxic. Magic can't heal these burns," Charlie explained. Dinner was a hearty affair, though Mrs. Weasley seemed less than pleased with Bill's choice of companion. Bill had just left with Fleur, their affection for each other evident in their goodbye. Lupin, too, had excused himself, mentioning something about needing to keep an eye on things outside. Harry, feeling the warmth of the burrow and the company of those he considered family, couldn't help but feel content. He was enjoying a slice of freshly baked apple pie when he asked, "Where's Dumbledore?" Lupin replied, "He's at Hogwarts, likely enjoying a fine meal with the other professors." "Tonks hasn't come back either," Harry noted, scanning the faces around the long table. Sitting next to him, Sirius leaned in and whispered, "Molly invites her over every chance she gets. It's no secret she hopes Tonks will end up with Bill." He cast a surreptitious glance at Fleur, causing Harry to realize why Tonks had seemed so reluctant the last time Mrs. Weasley had pulled her aside with a smile. The burrow had always been a second home to Harry, a place where he felt truly at ease. Sirius, preferring the warmth and chaos of the Weasley household to the gloomy solitude of the Black family home, had chosen to stay here to avoid Creature, the family's old house elf. After dinner, Bill and Fleur departed, still wrapped up in their own little world of love. Lupin also took his leave, with a vague mention of needing to keep an eye on things outside. Harry, lying in bed, turned to see his godfather beside him. This was a life he had never dared to imagine for himself. "What's the matter, Harry?" Sirius asked, noticing Harry's gaze. With a chuckle, Harry simply said, "Sirius." "Yes, thank you for being alive." "That's what I want to tell you too," Sirius replied, his features softened by the dim light. "Good night, Sirius." 3 days later, Harry was preparing to leave the burrow with Sirius for the Black family home. However, Fred Weasley had other plans, excitedly informing them of a Quidditch match between Diagon Alley and Nocturne Alley teams. Sirius, ever the enthusiast for a bit of fun, was all too ready to head to Diagon Alley, despite Mrs. Weasley's protests. "No, absolutely not. Out of the question," Mrs. Weasley exclaimed, blocking the door with a determination only a mother could muster. Her concern was understandable. The Weasley family clock still pointed to mortal danger, and she was not willing to let her children risk their safety. "All right, Molly, you win," Sirius conceded after a brief but futile attempt to persuade her. Harry, Ron, and Ginny couldn't hide their disappointment. This match might have been their only chance for an adventure during the holidays. Sirius, sensing their dismay, led them upstairs, seemingly in surrender. Mrs. Weasley, satisfied, returned to the kitchen. But no sooner had she left than Sirius, with a mischievous grin, motioned for Harry, Ron, and Ginny to follow him. They tiptoed out the door, the thrill of defying Mrs. Weasley's orders electrifying the air. Their escape was almost perfect until Ron accidentally knocked over a broom, alerting Mrs. Weasley. "Run," Sirius urged, and they dashed out the door, quickly moving beyond the range of the anti-apparition spell. With a crack, they vanished from the burrow, reappearing amidst the bustling crowd of Diagon Alley, now adorned with the frosty touches of a white Christmas. "Stick together, don't get lost," Sirius instructed, raising his voice to be heard over the crowd. He took Ron's hand, who in turn grabbed Harry's. Harry reached out to Ginny, and the moment their hands touched, a spark seemed to pass between them, urging Harry to hold on a little tighter. The streets were packed, but they managed to make their way to Weasley's Wizard Wheezes. George and Fred were busy selling tickets, their voices carrying over the heads of the eager crowd. "4 for Diagon Alley," Harry called out, securing their entry. Once inside, they were pushed through a vermilion door next to the shop, stepping into what felt like another world. A vast Quidditch pitch unfolded before them, the crowd spreading out into the stands, the excitement palpable in the air. "Harry," Sirius and Ron approached, their expressions mirroring Harry's own fascination. "Since when did Diagon Alley boast such a marvel?" Harry exclaimed, his eyes wide with wonder. The stadium before them, though slightly smaller than the one used for the Quidditch World Cup, was impressive in its own right. It was initially intended for the Ministry of Magic's amusement park project. Upon hearing about the competition, I read it up, explained a familiar voice nearby. Turning, they saw Mr. Weasley, accompanied by Bill and Charlie. Mr. Weasley, looking somewhat sheepish, added, "Just don't let Molly know." He had used the guise of work as an excuse to witness the game. The group quickly merged, their excitement palpable. As they observed the participants from both Diagon Alley and Nocturne Alley preparing for the game, Ron remarked in surprise, "Am I seeing things, or is that the owner of Florin Fusco's ice cream shop?" "And there's the proprietor of the Quidditch boutique," Harry pointed out. One by one, familiar faces from their beloved shopping district appeared, leaving them in a state of disbelief. The game commenced shortly after, but it defied all expectations. Instead of a fierce competition, Florin Fusco nonchalantly pulled a snowball from his pocket and launched it at his opponent's face. What was anticipated to be a Quidditch match quickly devolved into a whimsical snowball fight. The playful chaos wasn't confined to the field. Soon, spectators and participants alike engaged in a snowball fight, blurring the lines between the game and the audience. The atmosphere was filled with laughter and shouts, as the unexpected turn of events brought a sense of camaraderie and joy to all present. The sight of shop owners, wizards, and witches, regardless of their usual stature or seriousness, participating in such a carefree activity was a heartwarming sight. Amidst the flurry of snowballs, the magical community came together, united by the simple pleasure of a snowball fight, reminding everyone of the magic found in moments of pure, unadulterated fun. Chapter 451, The Vanishing Giant. Harry thought it was sheer genius to conceive such a game. He watched as the Quidditch boutique owner was humorously knocked down by a snowball and saw a toothless wizard in green attempt to throw, only to have his goal obstructed by a wall of snow. The pitch, blanketed in snow, became the stage for an unexpected victory when the Diagon Alley Quidditch boutique owner triumphantly caught the snitch. Suddenly, the field erupted in excitement as ice witches on broomsticks soared across the sky, their bags generously dropping candies below. The snitch, once secured in the hands of the boutique owner, vibrated intensely before breaking free, soaring into the sky to transform into a giant exploding firework. The day was filled with unbridled joy, with both adults and children immersing themselves in the festivities. Laughter permeated the amusement park, endearing the yet-to-be-opened venue to everyone's hearts prematurely. In the stateroom above, Barty Crouch Sr. expressed his wish. It would be delightful to have a game like this annually. John, observing the fireworks that now spelled out Weasley's wizard wheezes, chuckled in agreement. This could indeed cover the maintenance costs of the equipment. He noted how the extravagant fireworks and the ice witches, all provided for free, presented a golden opportunity for publicity, making the event irresistible and free of charge. Hearing the laughter below, Barty Crouch Sr. momentarily set aside the dread the Dark Lord instilled in him, recognizing the success of their endeavor. "Let's not overdo it in the future, but I'm willing to overlook this," he remarked, his tone turning serious as he added, "We must avoid incidents like the one with the Shafiq family." He had initially sought to discuss the attack on the Rosier family with John, despite official reports failing to identify the perpetrator, suspecting a dark wizard's involvement. However, Crouch's informants had spotted the execution platform among the star disciples that day. "The Rosier family is dwindling. Any mishap involving them would have societal repercussions," Crouch Sr. voiced softly. John responded with a light chuckle. "Some matters cannot be postponed. We're all aware of their deeds," implying a deeper understanding of the situation. "I recall you being quite decisive," he added, prompting Crouch to express concern over potential troubles and the unresolved issue of Old Jack, with at least 3 wizards missing. "These matters should be left to the Aurors," Crouch advised. John, unfazed, mentioned, "Those individuals wronged an underage child," leaving Crouch speechless. After a moment, Crouch warned, "Amelia Bones has her eyes on you," to which John coolly replied, "I'm not bothered by others' scrutiny." After Crouch departed, John straightened his attire and gazed out the floor-to-ceiling windows, noting how Diagon Alley and Nocturne Alley almost seemed to merge if not for their distinctively colored attire. "My lord," Tang Mi entered, reporting the progress of their investigation into the giant's disappearance. "The giants are missing," he stated, highlighting the challenge of locating them, akin to finding a needle in a haystack. However, thanks to Hagrid, a half-giant friend who had visited the giant's territory, they had a lead on their location. After days of investigation across Europe, the findings were disheartening. John pondered whether Voldemort or Grindelwald was behind this, quickly dismissing Grindelwald for his lack of history with magical creatures, thus suspecting Voldemort. The realization that Voldemort might be rallying the giants, known for their magic resistance and disdain for wizards, indicated a significant escalation in his preparations for war. John, with a thoughtful expression, rubbed his ring, contemplating the implications of the giants' allegiance to Voldemort. Giants, unsuitable for stealth, hinted at a looming, overt conflict. When the formidable adversaries make their appearance, detection is inevitable. The sole reason Voldemort could triumph hinges on his readiness for war. "Where are Bellatrix and Narcissa?" John inquired, introducing another question into the mix. Tang Mi appeared perplexed. Narcissa has been out of touch with Bellatrix for quite some time. The only certainty is that Bellatrix remains within the country. John pondered. Has Voldemort really left his only ally in the country so exposed? He speculated whether Voldemort had forsaken Bellatrix, using her as a decoy. Draft a report for the Order of the Phoenix, John decided. Despite the complex relationship between the Order of the Phoenix and the Order of Stars, he chose not to communicate directly. Perhaps this information could be leveraged against Voldemort's forces, letting them address the issue with the giants. Subsequently, an article titled, "Where Did the Giants Go?" surfaced in the newspaper. Citing a magizoologist's insights, it explored the disappearance of giants, quickly garnering the Order of the Phoenix's attention. At dinner, Charlie mused, "First the fire dragon vanishes, now the giants too." Prompted by this, Lupin consulted the newspaper. "Arthur," he called out, and upon receiving a nod from Arthur Weasley, they sought a more private setting to discuss the matter. Unbeknownst to Harry, who was busy with Sirius arranging the Black family's old house, an unexpected visitor was about to arrive. Hearing the doorbell, Harry rushed to answer, only to find the last person he wished to see. "Snape, Professor," he greeted, puzzled by Snape's presence. "Harry, who is it?" Sirius, engaged in decorating the Christmas tree with a Muggle-inspired starlight, descended to see for himself. His expression darkened instantly upon seeing Snape. "Severus, what brings you here?" Sirius hadn't forgotten Snape's vendetta that led to his godson's imprisonment. "You should learn to read, Black." Snape retorted with his characteristic drawl. "The Order of the Phoenix is convening." Sirius quickly let in an owl carrying the summons. Soon after, Mr. Weasley arrived with his children. Ron greeted Harry, and at Mr. Weasley's insistence, Harry and Ron retreated upstairs. Despite Harry's curiosity, he sensed the gravity of the situation. Tonks and Moody arrived, with Kingsley still tied up at the Ministry making arrangements for the Aurors. Moody, still recovering from a previous encounter with Death Eaters, limped in. "Everyone's here except Kingsley," Lupin announced, laying out the newspaper. "The giants are missing." Dumbledore had once assigned Hagrid a covert mission, which failed, Moody stated gruffly. "We believe the issue with the giants ended with the Death Eaters' defeat." "The reality proves otherwise," Tonks interjected anxiously. "How do we know it's he who must not be named?" Besides Hagrid, only the Death Eaters had been there, Lupin explained gravely. "Giants don't migrate without reason. Their disappearance suggests they're being concealed." "By someone," Sirius added, the mood turning somber. "Where's Dumbledore?" Mr. Weasley inquired, noting Dumbledore's absence on such a critical matter. "Dumbledore is at Hogwarts," Snape replied calmly, hinting at something concealed within the school. Lupin sought clarification, but Snape remained evasive. The meeting stretched into the night, with Kingsley arriving at the Black residence past midnight. The Ministry of Magic was abuzz, a fact Mr. Weasley, Tonks, and former Auror Moody understood well. Kingsley's arrival brought staggering news, the kind that left everyone reeling. "Old Jack is gone," Kingsley announced solemnly. A member of the werewolf community? Sirius inquired, his voice laced with concern. Lupin, unable to contain his restlessness, quickly stood up. What happened? He demanded, his voice tinged with urgency. Kingsley's deep voice filled the room. It's suspected to be the work of someone with a deep-seated hatred for werewolves. The Aurors attempted to step in, but they were halted. Who has the power to stop an Auror? Bill couldn't help but ask. In the Wizarding world, it was a widely held belief that Aurors wielded significant authority in upholding the law, a testament to why the Department of Magical Law Enforcement was the Ministry of Magic's largest enforcement body. Kingsley dropped a name that sent shivers down everyone's spine. Johnny Silverhand. The room fell into a heavy silence as the gravity of the situation settled in. Johnny Silverhand was not a name mentioned lightly. His influence and power were well known, and the fact that he could prevent the Aurors from intervening spoke volumes about the severity of the situation. Sirius broke the silence, his voice steady but filled with a barely contained fury. How can someone like Silverhand have the audacity to interfere with Auror business? And more importantly, why would he want to protect a werewolf hater? Lupin paced back and forth, his mind racing with thoughts and concerns. The werewolf community was already marginalized, and this attack, coupled with Silverhand's involvement, could only spell more trouble. Kingsley nodded grimly. It's a complex situation. Silverhand has his fingers in many pies, and his motives are never straightforward. We need to tread carefully and gather more information before making any moves. The group nodded in agreement, understanding the delicacy of the situation. They were all too aware of the challenges that lay ahead, but they were determined to stand together and fight against the injustice that threatened their world. Chapter 452, Old Jack's Disappearance. The werewolf community was in turmoil. Old Jack, a beloved figure among them, was missing. He usually spent his time sitting under the big tree, a routine he had followed for years, but today he was nowhere to be found. Sophie, who had returned to spend Christmas with Old Jack, discovered the home had been attacked. Ace and Tylo had narrowly escaped harm, as they were not present during the incident. Without hesitation, Sophie rallied the werewolf capture team to commence a search. The entire community was on edge. Old Jack was not only a cherished mentor, but also their most respected member of Parliament. The discovery of signs of a struggle within his home only deepened their concern. Tai Luo, pale-faced, recognized a trace of magic at the scene, identical to one that had targeted her previously. The Aurors were informed, but found themselves unable to intervene directly. Meanwhile, at Silverhand Manor, a meeting was underway. Old Jack's former students, Jack, Seven, Ace, and Taylor, gathered, seeking guidance from John, who emerged from his study with a steely look in his eyes. Comforting the youngest, Tai Luo, with a reassuring pat on the head, he declared, "It seems the warnings issued previously were insufficient to deter certain fools." Jack, the eldest of the students, voiced the concern they all felt. "Grandpa will be okay, right?" "Of course." John replied with unwavering confidence, "That's my promise to you." His assurance provided a much-needed sense of relief to the anxious group. In the werewolf community, John Silverhand's word was law. His honor and integrity were beyond question. Kim, approaching John with new information, announced, "I found it." "Identity?" John inquired, his tone cool. "Wizards and werewolves," Kim revealed. John's brow furrowed at the mention of werewolves. "One of Fenrir Greyback's followers?" he asked, surprised. Having neutralized Fenrir Greyback upon his arrival in Nocturne Alley, John was taken aback that any of Greyback's followers would dare return. "It seems they have backers," he concluded with a sneer, ready to confront those who dared challenge his authority. The Shafiq family's previous failure to heed his warnings evidently hadn't deterred others loyal to the Dark Lord. "Have some candy? Christmas isn't all about teeth," John said, lightening the mood as he conjured a pile of candy for the children. Meanwhile, Old Jack found himself in a dire situation. He was bound and had awakened in a sparsely furnished room, with only one door and a single captor standing before him. Recognizing his captor as Carl Carroll, a member of the Sacred 28 wizarding families, and the only one not imprisoned in Azkaban, Old Jack realized the gravity of his predicament. "You betrayed Lord Silverhand," Old Jack accused. "Betrayal?" Carl scoffed. I was never loyal to him. My loyalty has always been to the Dark Lord. With a cruel smile, Carl cast the Cruciatus curse on old Jack, who writhed in agony under the spell's effect. The pain was excruciating, making seconds feel like centuries. Once the curse was lifted, old Jack, drained and panting, listened as Carl declared the imminent return of the Dark Lord and the need to eliminate those like Jack. Carl taunted old Jack with claims of Johnny Silverhand's hypocrisy, suggesting that Silverhand's efforts to improve werewolf rights were merely a ploy for power. Despite Carl's attempts to break his spirit, old Jack remained defiant, refusing to believe Silverhand had deceived them. Enjoying the torment he inflicted, Carl subjected old Jack to the Cruciatus curse once more. Just as old Jack neared the brink of unconsciousness, Carl hinted at a sinister reunion. An old friend of yours wants to see you again. The door opened, revealing a werewolf marked by a distinctive scar, signaling a dark turn in old Jack's ordeal. As old Jack's gaze fell upon the scarred figure that had just entered, his pupils constricted in alarm. Old Jack, it seems you've thrived under Johnny Silverhand's protection. The scarred werewolf Mark said with a menacing grin. But I'll kill you, and all of this will be mine. That's impossible. Even if you kill me, you won't gain control over the werewolf community, old Jack retorted, his voice heavy with conviction. You're mistaken, Mark replied, his chuckle sending shivers down the spine. The werewolf community is in dire need of a leader. Your demise will only reignite their deep-seated hatred for wizards. He referenced Fenrir Greyback's notorious strategy of biting wizard children to cultivate this very hatred, a strategy that had led to Mark's own creation. If Johnny Silverhand fails to make decisive moves following your death, it could sow seeds of discontent among the werewolves, further exacerbating the already tense relations between werewolves and wizards. Old Jack's expression darkened as he processed Mark's words. Carl, another werewolf present, added, It seems you've pieced it together. Those werewolves will inevitably gravitate towards those who promise them liberation, namely the Dark Lord. And I, Carl declared with a manic intensity, will personally kill you and then surrender to the Ministry of Magic. As a pureblood, I'll face imprisonment at most, while the werewolf community will be left leaderless and divided. He outlined a sinister plot to escape punishment by exploiting his pure-blood status, knowing well that the werewolf community's leaderless state would incite public outrage against the Ministry of Magic, thereby deepening the rift between the magical society and the werewolves. Old Jack's mind raced as he considered Carl's plan. The Carlo family, to which Carl belonged, was influential among purebloods who were interlinked by marriage and mutual interests. The Ministry of Magic would hesitate to act against Carl, fearing repercussions from other pureblood families. This deadlock could potentially lead to internal strife within the ministry and among the pureblood families themselves, all while the werewolf community crumbled from within. Pale-faced, old Jack realized the gravity of his situation. His death could plunge the werewolf community, which had been on the path to recovery, back into chaos. Overwhelmed by despair, he shouted, Then why don't you just kill me? Shh! Carl taunted, his grin widening. Only through sufficient suffering can one truly evoke deep emotions. He implied that the death of a leader, especially one subjected to torture, would have a more profound impact on the community than a quick, painless death. Old Jack struggled in vain, wishing for death to spare his community from further turmoil. Carl, reveling in his cruelty, raised his wand to old Jack, but before he could cast a spell, an unexpected voice interrupted. Excellent strategy, the voice said calmly. Carl spun around to face a tall figure approaching, his face obscured by a silver mask. Carl laughed arrogantly, recognizing the newcomer. You are indeed the second king of the wizarding world. But what does it matter? He taunted, confident in his protected status among the pureblood families. Killing me would mean alienating them. Are you prepared for that? But Carl failed to see the disdain in John's eyes. John responded nonchalantly, You seem quite confident in your identity. Indeed, Carl was. The Shafiq family had once challenged Johnny Silverhand and faced exile as a consequence, while the rest of the Carlo family languished in Azkaban. It was an unspoken rule among pure-blood families to protect their last remaining members. Moreover, Werewolves were not regarded as equals in the wizarding world. Would killing a werewolf even be considered a crime worthy of Azkaban? Carl's smug expression said it all. He believed that by either capturing or releasing the murderer, John would disappoint the werewolf community, leading to its division. With a confident smile, Carl even dared to take a few steps closer, challenging John's resolve. "Kill me?" Carl asked, his voice laced with fear and defiance. "Complete you," John corrected with a sinister smile. He raised his hand, gesturing towards the void, and with a mere flick, Carl's body was sent flying by an invisible force. Mark, witnessing this, prepared to intervene, but before he could act, a green light enveloped him. It was Oxer who had cast the spell, efficiently dealing with all the threats outside. Gauss stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with a mix of greed and ambition. "Dear Lord Silverhand, if the price is right, I wouldn't mind being marked as a wanted man by a pure-blood family." John glanced at Gauss, a chuckle escaping his lips. 5,000 galleons, he offered. "Deal," Gauss replied instantly, his eyes lighting up with excitement. The fear of pure-blood families and the ministry of magic that Carl had anticipated was nowhere to be found in these men. John then turned his attention back to Carl, pulling him closer with a magical force. Carl looked up, only to meet John's piercing vertical pupils. There was a look of pity in John's eyes as he spoke. "Do you really think I need to be concerned about the opinions of others? How foolish. Did you actually believe that pure bloods could pose a threat to me?" Gauss approached with a mischievous grin, drawing his wand and pointing it directly at Carl's head. "I'm actually a peace-loving person," he said sarcastically before uttering, "Reducto." Carl's head exploded in an instant, reminiscent of a watermelon being smashed open. After the deed was done, Gauss casually remarked, "Well, I suppose it's time for me to make a swift exit." "Who said anything about running for your life?" John inquired, his tone calm yet carrying an underlying threat. Gauss paused, a hint of wariness in his voice. "Being imprisoned is a completely different matter." John smiled, a memory from Carl surfacing in his mind. "The 5,000 galleons isn't a fee for murder, but rather for clearing." He continued, his voice cold and determined. "Some pure-blood families still cling to the ludicrous notion of pure-blood supremacy and yearn for the days of Voldemort. If that's the case, then the solution is simple. We start with the Carlo family." John's plan was clear, to eradicate the toxic ideology of pure-blood supremacy, beginning with those who dared to stand in his way. The message was unmistakable. No one was beyond his reach. Chapter 453, The Liquidated Family. One person hurried into the Silverhand Manor, his complexion ashen and his steps brisk, clearly agitated. "Johnny! Johnny!" he called out, his voice echoing menacingly through the empty manor. "Minister Crouch," responded a voice, as a silver albatross flew into the hall, embodying John's presence. Old Barty, with a sullen face, addressed the albatross. "You owe me an explanation. I recall warning you not to overstep." "I believe Minister Crouch wouldn't mind a stroll to the garden. I'm somewhat occupied at the moment," the albatross replied, its beak moving as if in speech. With a flick of his robe, old Barty proceeded towards the garden, the albatross dissolving into a silver light and vanishing. Upon arriving in the garden, old Barty found the renowned Johnny Silverhand, who was helping a little girl catch butterflies. A butterfly with vibrant wings fluttered before him, which old Barty swatted away irritably as he made his way forward. The air was alive with butterflies, eliciting giggles from Tylo, while John chuckled from a short distance. With a light wave of his wand, John transformed the butterflies into a shower of flowers. "Johnny," old Barty began, his expression conflicted. "Minister Crouch," John greeted, waving his wand once more to turn the petals into a rabbit that hopped across the garden. Tylo squealed in delight and chased after it. "Children are naturally playful, aren't they?" John remarked, observing old Barty's expression. "Relax, I'm here, aren't I?" "You've exiled the Shafiq family," Crouch stated grimly, "and now you're targeting the Carlo family. Johnny, as I've said, don't push the boundaries." "It's not me, old Barty," John replied calmly. "It's their own doing." "But you can't prevent the Aurors from enforcing the law," old Barty exclaimed, relieved that Tylo had chased the rabbit away, sparing her from the potential fright. "And what crime would the Aurors charge them with? Kidnapping? Abducting a magical creature?" John countered. We're all aware of how many view werewolves more as beasts than humans. The distinction between killing a human and a humanoid is significant. One is murder, the other is akin to killing an intelligent animal. Old Barty was at a loss for words. In a deep voice, he warned, "Your actions have not only embarrassed the Ministry of Magic, but have also united the purebloods against you. The dwindling purebloods need to preserve their lineage. Carl is the sole heir of the Carlo family." Old Barty continued, his gaze fixed on John. "The extinction of a family will drive the purebloods to oppose you at any cost. They fear their families might suffer the same fate as the Carlos, disappearing without a trace. The unspoken rule among them is to band together for the sake of family preservation. And you, Old Barty, are also a pure blood. Coming here to warn me is already a favor as a friend. But consider how the officials and businessmen of pure blood will react to this news. You're well aware of their influence." "You should be wary, John," he said, dropping the informal Johnny. "They're unaware of your true nature and will attack you relentlessly. Carl's death should occur within the Ministry of Magic, not by external hands." "And what about you, Old Barty?" John asked with a sly smile. "Do you also intend to follow this unspoken rule and come after me?" Old Barty bristled at the suggestion. "You think I would do such a thing?" "It was merely a clarification," John replied nonchalantly. "As long as you're not part of it, all is well." "Aren't you concerned?" Old Barty inquired, frowning. "I understand your actions were meant to stabilize the werewolf situation, which indirectly aids him. As the Minister of Magic, Barty Crouch Sr. was acutely aware that he couldn't wield all the power alone. The pureblood families, with their political influence and wealth, were essential in maintaining their status within the wizarding world. Despite his bravery in facing external threats like Voldemort, Crouch found the internal politics with the purebloods to be a more insidious challenge. Their influence was a soft power, not as overt as Voldemort's strength, but potentially just as damaging. "Old Barty, they won't unite against us," John confidently asserted, interrupting Crouch's thoughts. "An agreement only holds if there's someone to enforce it. There are always those who are pragmatic, considering the heavy price of defiance." John's words left Crouch speechless, his face draining of color as he pondered the implications. Suddenly, he remembered something, or rather someone, ominous. "Tang me, where is Tommy Shelby?" he asked, a sense of dread creeping into his voice. Tommy Shelby, John's steward and most trusted ally, had been conspicuously absent since their arrival at Silverhand Manor, which was unusually quiet. "What have you done, John?" Crouch demanded, his voice a mix of fear and anger. Meanwhile, the tranquility of the Roll family estate was shattered by an explosion. As the family discussed their stance against Johnny Silverhand and the pureblood agreement, their home was attacked, a testament to the fragility of their alliances. Elsewhere, the head of the Selwyn family, one of the 28 sacred pureblood lines, found himself in a desperate flight through the forest. Known for their noble blood and staunch support of pureblood supremacy, the Selwyns had aligned themselves with Voldemort. Now, the family head was reduced to a fugitive, his once impeccable appearance marred by mud and fear as he stumbled through the wilderness. In a moment of panic, Selwyn attempted to apparate away from his pursuer, but found his wand broken and his efforts futile. Confronted by Gauss and an Asian wizard, Selwyn desperately tried to plead his innocence, blaming others for the actions taken against Lord Silverhand. Gauss, feigning confusion at Selwyn's claims of pure and holy blood, questioned his loyalty. As Selwyn frantically accused others of orchestrating the betrayal, the Asian wizard grew impatient, ready to act. However, Gauss intervened, signaling for silence and chiding his companion for their harsh treatment of Selwyn, despite the latter's evident fear and desperation. This scene illustrates the complex web of alliances, betrayals, and power struggles within the wizarding world, where loyalty is often a matter of convenience and the line between friend and foe is perilously thin. Selwyn's eyes flickered with a glimmer of hope as Gauss produced an unmarked wand from his pocket, chastising him. "You should use this wand. Yours could be traced by others. It's simply unprofessional." The Asian wizard snatched the wand with a hint of impatience. "Wait, I can offer money, a substantial amount," Selwyn pleaded, desperation creeping into his voice. "It's in a drawer in my study." Avada Kedavra, came the cold, merciless reply. Selwyn's body tumbled down the valley, his last hope extinguished. The Asian wizard, expressionless, snapped the borrowed wand in two and tossed it into the abyss below. Gauss lamented with a hint of sorrow. Confusion leads to downfall. If I kill you, your wealth becomes mine as well. Accustomed to Gauss's peculiar mannerisms, the Asian wizard returned to Selwyn's castle, retrieving a parchment from his pocket. The list of names it bore was now nearly entirely crossed out. Gauss, clutching a box, remarked, "The boss didn't forbid earning a little on the side. We'll split the profits evenly." "I only take what I've earned," the Asian wizard responded, dismissing Gauss's suggestion. In the wake of their departure, Selwyn Castle lay in ruins, its inhabitants eradicated. But the carnage was not confined to this location alone. 5 pureblood families had been extinguished in a single night. "By the way," Gauss said, pulling a piece of human skin from his pocket. He picked up a discarded wand from the ground, aimed it at the skin, and a dark mark materialized above Selwyn Castle, signaling the grim fate that had befallen those within. Chapter 454, The Emerald Ring Under the Moonlight. Barty Crouch Sr. stormed back into the room, his demeanor one of barely contained fury. It was clear he hadn't anticipated John's audacity. To have 5 members of a pureblood family eradicated in one fell swoop was unthinkable. "Do you even regard the Ministry of Magic with any respect?" he thundered, the first time John had ever seen him truly lose his composure. The room, cleared of all others, echoed with his rage as he slammed his palm against the table. John, however, remained the picture of calm, reclining in his chair as he listened to Crouch's tirade about the ensuing chaos at the Ministry. Amelia Bones had called for an exhaustive investigation, sending Aurors to scour homes throughout the night. The incident had sown panic, and Crouch feared Amelia's actions might jeopardize his position, a scenario he found intolerable. Despite his long-standing cooperation with John, this latest act was beyond his threshold of acceptance. Once Crouch had vented his frustrations, John finally spoke, his tone measured. "I appreciate your dedication, Barty, running to and fro for your friends even amidst this turmoil." Crouch fell silent, taking a seat. "Yes, they're dead," John continued, his fingers idly tracing the surface of an emerald ring, his voice devoid of emotion. "But where's the evidence?" "Anyone could guess it was you," Crouch retorted sharply, his gaze fixed on John. "Following Old Jack's incident, it's clear you're responsible." "You're mistaken, Barty," John replied, his expression unguarded, allowing Crouch to see the slight curve of his lips. "I would have acted regardless of the situation with Old Jack." Crouch's eyes widened in disbelief. "Do you comprehend the gravity of your words?" At that moment, a black owl swooped in through the window, perching on the railing. John's response was nonchalant. "I take it no Auror has approached, which means you've managed to keep this under wraps?" Crouch, his brow furrowed, didn't reply but instead pressed, "Answer me, John Wick." "Very well," John said, a mischievous smile playing on his lips. "I did it for you, Barty." "For me? Ridiculous," Crouch scoffed. Unperturbed, John listed the families affected by the incident, noting Crouch's reaction. "What do you think Voldemort needs most at this moment?" Without waiting for a response, John answered his own question. "Chaos. He needs to sow discord to attract followers." These 5 families were either hidden supporters or inclined towards Voldemort, destabilizing society from within. "So, you eliminated them?" Crouch asked, skepticism lacing his tone. John shook his head, a faint smile on his lips. "I'm not that heartless. They sought to disrupt society, but what's the most effective way to counter that?" Crouch, no fool, pondered John's question before arriving at an answer. "The Ministry of Magic." "Exactly," John said, snapping his fingers. "The werewolf community is expanding, and Old Jack's death, given his ties to the Ministry and leadership among werewolves, could incite a conflict that would force the Ministry's hand." John outlined a scenario where the Ministry would be compelled to act, potentially leading to a change in leadership. A scapegoat from a pure-blood family would be implicated, shifting the werewolves' grievances and creating an opportunity for chaos. With the werewolves' dissatisfaction, they might align more closely with the dark forces, John explained, each revelation leaving Crouch increasingly alarmed. These 5 families were marked for their refusal to align at the last gathering. Their elimination won't stir unrest among the other families, John concluded, his tone calm yet firm, as he tapped the emerald ring, a symbol of the calculated chaos he had orchestrated under the moonlight. The table was touched casually, and several thick booklets soared from the bookshelf, arranging themselves neatly in front of Old Batty. Each booklet flipped open, revealing detailed accounts of various disputes and political maneuvers which thin the wizarding world. The Flint family was embroiled in a potion dispute with the Monroes, while the Prewetts fell to the Carlo family's wrath, one document detailed. Selwyn has been pilfering supplies from the Longbottoms. Roar has been at odds with the Greengrasses, undermining Arthur Weasley at the Ministry of Magic. Even Geoffrey and Shacklebolt have drawn wands against each other. John laid out the evidence with precision, showcasing the underhanded dealings of 5 families, mere nuisances in his eyes. I had plans to financially cripple them through suppression, but they've essentially handed me the means to their own destruction, John mused, stroking Riddle, his black, long-eared owl, with a casual air. Old Batty, with each parchment he perused, grew increasingly alarmed. The machinations of these families could easily topple a minister of magic. Guns are easy to conceal, but arrows are difficult to defend against, he thought. These families were like vipers, lurking in the shadows, ready to strike. John stood behind Old Batty, placing his hands on the older man's shoulders. We're in this together, Old Batty. Just as you chose not to align with the Aurors, I offered my support in return, he said, his voice deep and convincing. The downfall of these 5 families secures your position. No, Old Batty countered, looking up. These aren't just any families. They're Death Eaters purged by Voldemort himself. John's smile widened as he saw Barty Sr. relent. No one appreciates those who seek their downfall. By casting the dark mark above each family's estate, John sowed fear and confusion. Although many doubted Voldemort's involvement, the mere suggestion was enough to stir panic. Old Batty's expression hardened as John made him realize his position was precarious. Yet he wondered, could he truly trust John completely? What do you want? Old Batty inquired, peering intently at John. We're friends, Old Batty, John replied, his smile unwavering. As Old Batty departed Silverhand Manor, he took one last glance back. The figures on the balcony were indistinct, but the emerald ring on John's finger sparkled conspicuously. The alliance of pure-blood families, though formidable, paled in comparison to the decisive power John wielded. In the aftermath, the wizarding world buzzed with rumors and news. The tragedy of the 5 families revealed, headlines proclaimed, alongside discussions of werewolf rights and the ever-present shadow of darkness. The Ministry of Magic, rocked by scandal, remained tight-lipped, attributing the chaos to Voldemort and bolstering its defenses. The demise of the 5 families unfolded publicly, their dark dealings exposed. As for the unspoken rules among pure bloods, they were quickly forgotten as the remaining families scrambled to claim the vacated territories. The Malfoys, Greengrasses, and Longbottoms emerged as the primary beneficiaries, seizing control of lucrative markets and solidifying their status among the sacred 28 families. Lucius Malfoy celebrated with premium wine from Silverhand's cellar. The Greengrasses invested in new firebolts for Astoria, and the Longbottoms tailored custom clothes for Neville, boasting exceptional elasticity. The families left empty-handed could only watch in frustration, a stark reminder that challenging the new order could lead to their downfall. John had ventured deep into the heart of the wizarding community, seeking answers to a mystery that had long plagued the families of Gore and Crabbe. These families, known for their distinctive straightforward expressions that seemed to run in their genes, were rumored to be behind a series of tragic events. Yet, when John interviewed them, both families vehemently denied any involvement. Observing their earnest faces, reminiscent of an older generation of Gore and Crabbe, John found himself inclined to believe them. He pondered if perhaps a genetic anomaly was at play, rather than foul play. The most challenging task that had stumped Old Batty was effortlessly resolved by Joe A.N. He understood that in the wizarding world, as in any other, interests could turn the tide. Agreements, often seen as mere formalities, held little weight without the right incentive. However, John considered that an unbreakable oath might just be the key to ensuring compliance. Such a magical contract, if entered into, could not be broken without dire consequences, thus guaranteeing honesty and adherence to the agreed terms. John's approach was pragmatic. He knew that the complexities of wizarding politics and family loyalties often obscured the truth. By navigating these with a blend of skepticism and understanding, he aimed to uncover the real story behind the accusations against the Gore and Crabbe families. His methodical investigation, grounded in the belief that everyone deserves a chance to prove their innocence, slowly began to shed light on a tangled web of secrets and lies. Chapter 455, Percy's Transfiguration. It seemed as though the entire wizarding world had momentarily forgotten about the mysterious disappearance of the 5 families. On Christmas Eve, a surprising visit by Gilderoy Lockhart to Silverhand Press caused quite a stir. The young women, already buzzing with anticipation, let out shrieks of excitement upon seeing him. Lockhart, dressed in an elegant brown suit that accentuated his mature charm and holding a pipe, confidently approached the crowd of book enthusiasts. "Don't be afraid, because I'm here," he declared, echoing one of his famous lines from his books. The crowd's reaction was so intense that even the snow on the eaves was dislodged. Among the crowd was Mrs. Weasley, whose excitement was palpable. Ron and Harry, however, could only exchange looks of disdain towards Lockhart, puzzled by the adoration he received. Mrs. Weasley had initially been reluctant to attend, but Ron had convinced her, citing the need to support Fred and George. The twins' shop was thriving, to the point where they were considering opening a branch in Hogsmeade, a testament to their success that left Ron green with envy. Harry, on the other hand, was less affected by financial matters, his thoughts preoccupied with Ginny. "Where's Ginny?" Harry inquired, his concern for her evident. Ron casually suggested she might be at Fred and George's shop, not overly worried about his sister's whereabouts. Ginny was known for her strong will, not easily swayed or intimidated. Harry's feelings for Ginny had been complicated since their last encounter, but he was determined to respect her relationship with Dean, not wanting to be seen as dishonorable like Blaise. The disappearance of the 5 families had cast a shadow over the Order of the Phoenix, with Mr. Weasley even having to work on Christmas Eve. Barty Crouch Sr. had blamed Voldemort, suggesting it was retribution against the Death Eater families. However, the theory didn't sit well with many, as Voldemort's tactics didn't typically involve such drastic measures against his own followers. The speculation around the incident pointed towards a powerful, yet unidentified, perpetrator. Meanwhile, Kingsley Shacklebolt was gathering information from the Auror's office, and others within the Order were also pursuing leads. The werewolf community, under the leadership of Old Jack, was abuzz with rumors, their allegiance leaning towards Johnny Silverhand for guidance. At Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, Harry and Ron found Ginny engaging with a customer about the Daydream charm. After the transaction, George and Fred playfully suggested Ginny join their business venture, offering her shares. Ron's protective instincts kicked in, half-jokingly warning of their mother's wrath, to which George retorted with a tease directed at Ron. The conversation shifted when Ron inquired about a spell, leading to a discussion about the origins and nature of certain spells. Ginny expressed concern over Harry's use of spells from a mysterious book, prompting Fred to caution Harry about the potential dangers of unknown magic. Despite the warnings, Harry and Ron were dismissive, reflecting on Hermione's advice about the legality and morality of using such spells. This chapter not only highlights the dynamics within the Weasley family and their friends, but also touches upon the broader concerns and mysteries facing the wizarding world. The characters' interactions and the unfolding events set the stage for further developments in this intriguing narrative. George was not one to mince words, nor was he one to let an opportunity for a lesson pass by unnoticed. He had already demonstrated his point by teaching Crabbe a memorable lesson with an unconventional toe-growing spell. Their presence was meant to be helpful, not fodder for idle gossip, though Ron seemed to have his own set of grievances. He had hoped for a day of leisure, only to find himself tasked with work. "Stop complaining," George chided, directing Ron to fetch a bag of dragon-roasted chestnuts for a customer he affectionately referred to as Plump. Left with no alternative, Ron begrudgingly approached the dragon model, only to singe his skin on the scalding chestnuts. The Weasleys' Wizard Wheeze's shop was bustling, particularly in the aftermath of a Quidditch match that had showcased many of their products, drawing in a continuous stream of customers. It wasn't until the afternoon that Harry and the others could finally catch their breath. The twins, ever the entrepreneurs, contemplated sending recruitment brochures to Hogwarts in hopes of hiring a few low-wage graduates. "I need to head to Nocturne Alley," George announced, winking at Ginny before delegating the shop's responsibilities to her. Ron's interest was piqued at the mention of Nocturne Alley, and he quickly volunteered, eager to escape his current role as the dragon-roasted chestnut officer. George, with a sneer, suggested a new position for Ron as a daydream charm salesman, which immediately brought a flush to Ron's cheeks. Harry, too, expressed a desire to visit Nocturne Alley, a place he had been strictly forbidden from exploring by Mrs. Weasley. After some coaxing, George relented, acknowledging it was unfair to burden Fred with all the work, despite Fred's vocal protests. Nocturne Alley was not as Harry and the others had envisioned. Harry, who had once accidentally wandered into the alley and been hastily escorted out by Hagrid, remembered it as a much narrower path. The transformation of Nocturne Alley left both Harry and Ron in awe. Did Hagrid do this? Harry wondered aloud. George led them through the overturned garden, a shortcut between Nocturne Alley and Diagon Alley, to a house marked with a tin box where George intended to pick up some goods. A large, bald man greeted George warmly, confirming their friendly rapport. Harry and Ron, curious about the alley, decided to explore further, while Ginny was captivated by a silver eggshell shown to her by a witch. As they ventured deeper, Harry recognized a familiar location, the former site of Borgin and Burke's. It was there they spotted Percy Weasley entering a luxurious shop, sparking a flurry of whispered speculation among them. George, catching up to them, playfully chided their curiosity before handing Ginny a licorice stick he had received from the bald man. The mention of Johnny Silverhand piqued Harry's interest, as he wondered if Percy was seeking out Hagrid. Once George concluded his business, they prepared to leave, only to encounter Percy exiting the Johnny Silverhand store. Percy, upon noticing them, approached with a greeting, though Ron noted his name was conspicuously absent from the salutation. George, with his usual flair for the dramatic, exclaimed, "My God, it's Director Percy!" To which Percy responded with a softened expression, particularly when his gaze fell upon Ginny. He explained his presence in Nocturne Alley as a quest for family gifts, producing 2 gift boxes from a blue speckled paper bag. Percy's demeanor shifted as he turned to Ron, his eyes narrowing. "I heard from Draco that you bullied Ginny?" he inquired, his tone laced with disapproval. Ron, caught off guard, struggled to recall the incident, but Percy's memory was unblemished. Draco Malfoy had provided him with a detailed account of Ron's harsh words towards Ginny, leaving Ron to confront the consequences of his actions. Percy's parting words, "Don't blame others for what you can't do," left a lasting impression, underscoring the importance of personal accountability. Percy, maintaining a stern expression, advised, "Improve yourself." Ron's temper flared upon hearing this. He thought, "What right does a member of the Star Club have to judge me?" However, Ron quickly remembered that Percy was not only his brother, but also an accomplished wizard. A chill ran down Ron's spine as he imagined his own stature diminishing, his eyebrows turning as white as snow. Had it not been for the familial bond they shared, Ron was certain he would have been forced to make an awkward, sideways exit from Nocturne Alley. Why? Don't bully Ginny at school. Understand? Percy issued a final warning before turning on his heel and departing. George, ever the joker, clapped Ron on the back and offered a consoling smile. "Look on the bright side, at least he didn't curse you to be a dwarf for eternity." Ron, seething with a mix of frustration and powerlessness, could only stew in his fury. This moment between the brothers highlighted the complex dynamics within the Weasley family, showcasing Percy's stern but protective nature, Ron's fiery temper, and George's ability to find humor in any situation. It also subtly underscored the respect and fear Percy's magical abilities commanded, even among his own siblings. Chapter 456, Advice to Lupin. Old Jack was admitted to Silver Cross Hospital, and his children came to visit him. Gently stroking Tylo's head, Ace brought him a plethora of candies. Sophie and Chudai also made their way to see him. I managed to chase away the reporters lurking outside. Sophie entered, her expression clouded with displeasure. They're like sharks, always eager to sniff out the latest scoop on the Ministry of Magic, she added. Chudai approached, and Tylo timidly called out to him, "Brother." Old Jack, still reeling from the effects of the Cruciatus curse, spoke up. "Johnny Silverhand has restored justice for us. I want you all to promise to always stand by his side." The memory of Carl's treachery made him shudder. One can die, but a werewolf's legacy isn't so easily erased. "Promise me, my children," he urged, taking their hands in his. His eyes, clouded with age and pain, bore into theirs with earnestness. Sophie and Chudai exchanged a glance before nodding in agreement. "Don't worry, Grandpa. We will never turn our backs on Johnny Silverhand," Sophie declared, her voice resonant with conviction. "He's the one who has given us everything. Even if it means betraying the Ministry of Magic, I will never oppose Johnny Silverhand," Chudai affirmed. Satisfied, old Jack lay back down, his heart aching with a pain that made breathing difficult. At that moment, a knock on the door interrupted the solemn atmosphere. Tylo scurried to open it, revealing a familiar face. "What are you doing here?" Sophie asked, her tone sharp and unwelcoming. "Remus Lupin." They all knew of Lupin's attempts to sway old Jack in the past. Holding a bouquet of flowers, Lupin remained unfazed by Sophie's hostility. "I've come to visit old Jack," he stated simply. "You're not wanted here," Sophie declared, ready to enforce her words. Lupin, with a resigned smile, turned to leave when old Jack's frail voice called out, "Sophie, let him come." Despite her reluctance, Sophie had no choice but to comply. Lupin approached old Jack's bedside and placed the flowers in a vase. "How are you holding up, old Jack?" he inquired, his voice laced with genuine concern and respect for the elder who had once looked after him. Old Jack managed a weak smile. "I'm not dead yet, but the Cruciatus curse is no pleasant affair." He then looked at his children and said, "Leave us. I wish to speak with him alone." Chudai gently restrained Sophie from protesting further, and Ace took Tylo's hand. They left the room, closing the door behind them, leaving only old Jack and Lupin. Old Jack, with some effort, propped himself up. Lupin quickly adjusted his pillows to make him more comfortable. "What do you wish to know, Remus?" Old Jack coughed, his voice raspy. "Or rather, what does the person behind you seek?" As old Jack's health had declined over the year, his appearance had grown more frail, his temples grayer, and his face lined with kind wrinkles. Lupin sighed. "You must think poorly of me." "Remus, the life you choose is yours to decide," old Jack replied after another severe cough, concern evident on the faces of his children outside. "Yes, I have questions," Lupin admitted, choosing honesty. "About the day you were kidnapped and the 5 families, these matters are crucial because of Voldemort." "It's not him you're truly curious about, is it?" Old Jack interrupted, his gaze piercing, as if he could see into Lupin's soul. "You're wondering if Johnny Silverhand is involved, aren't you? Why do you persist in your fixation on Johnny Silverhand?" Old Jack asked, his tone weary. Lupin found himself at a loss for words. Perhaps it was Johnny's unique nature that captivated them. "I can share what happened and tell you about the 5 families." Old Jack's eyes sharpened with resolve. "But before I do, you must make a choice. Remus, will you live as a werewolf or as a wizard?" This question, posed so directly, caused Lupin's heart to skip a beat, forcing him to confront the essence of his identity and his future path. Old Jack's gaze was piercing, his voice imbued with the authority of age. "As a werewolf, will you live for your kind or choose to be a wizard and forsake your true nature?" he asked. "I understand that we, as werewolves, have been shunned and reviled," he continued, his voice tinged with sadness. "But none of us chose this fate. No one desires to be a monster, to be without a place in the world." Old Jack coughed, a harsh sound that seemed to rattle his frame. Lupin quickly handed him a glass of water, and after a few sips, Jack's voice steadied. "If you wish to embrace your identity as a werewolf, you must lead your brethren. You must stand against those wizards who would see us eradicated and fight for our right to exist as equals." Lupin's eyes clouded with uncertainty. He had never considered the depth of the divide between werewolves and wizards, nor the systemic discrimination that could not be easily eradicated. As a werewolf, he felt a duty to protect his kind from oppression, yet as a wizard, he also felt compelled to contribute to the magical world. Old Jack patiently waited for Lupin to decide. "I can't deny my nature as a werewolf," Lupin admitted with a rueful smile. "Despite the presence of those among us who are violent and savage, we are all victims in the end." "Exactly, victims," Old Jack affirmed, locking eyes with Lupin. "And that's why you shouldn't be so quick to judge Lord Silverhand." Before Lupin could protest with talk of potential dangers or conspiracy theories, Old Jack cut him off. "I can share with you the truth of what happened during my abduction, but let me offer you a piece of advice first. Dumbledore will not bring peace to our kind. Faced with a choice between wizards and werewolves, he will always side with the wizards." Old Jack then recounted his kidnapping, his voice occasionally interrupted by coughs that prompted the children outside to check on him. Lupin listened intently, his initial curiosity giving way to confusion and concern. The plight of werewolves, the abduction by a pure-blood family, these were issues that could not be ignored. "I may not know everything about the 5 families, but—" Old Jack's expression softened with respect. "Lord Silverhand has never abandoned us." Needing fresh air to clear his thoughts, Lupin left the Silver Cross Hospital and found himself outside Johnny Silverhand's store, a place where he had once worked. The familiar sight brought back a flood of memories. His best years had been at Hogwarts, where, despite the absence of a cure for lycanthropy, he had found kindness in Dumbledore. There, he had formed friendships with James, Sirius, and even Peter Pettigrew before the latter's betrayal. He had been a prefect, casting spells alongside Snape, clinging to these memories during darker times. With James dead and Sirius imprisoned, the bonds of friendship that had once been his support had disintegrated. Lupin felt like a lone wolf, adrift in a society that relegated werewolves to the fringes, sometimes not even acknowledging them as human. As a member of the Order of the Phoenix, he understood the potential dangers posed by the Order of the Stars and the controversial actions of Johnny Silverhand, which seemed to threaten the very foundations of the magical world. Yet, from the perspective of a werewolf, Silverhand was a champion who dared to confront the powerful families on behalf of werewolves. The support Silverhand had shown to their cause might have been motivated by personal gain, but it was real nonetheless. Faced with the prospect of werewolves being oppressed once more, Lupin found himself at a crossroads. Should he fight for his kind or distance himself from the conflict? In the shadowy world where magic intertwines with the ordinary, Dumbledore stood as a beacon of wisdom and power, revered by many but truly understood by few. Among those few was Remus Lupin, for whom Dumbledore's kindness was not just a legend, but a lived reality. In a parallel reverence, Johnny Silverhand emerged as a deity in his own right, hailed as he god of werewolves. Under his influence, the werewolf community thrived, navigating the complex web of alliances and rivalries that defined their existence. "Remus?" A voice tinged with suspicion cut through the air, pulling Lupin from his thoughts. He turned to find Tonks, her hair a shade of midnight black, scanning their surroundings with cautious eyes. She leaned in, her voice a whisper. "What are you doing here?" "Just taking a stroll," Lupin replied, his curiosity piqued. "But what about you, Tonks? What brings you here?" With a huff of mock frustration, Tonks answered, "I thought you were out here looking for me. I'm on a mission to uncover the secrets of the 5 families." Lupin couldn't suppress a chuckle at her feigned annoyance. "I have my suspicions about that matter already," he admitted. "But now, it seems we can make our way back in time for Christmas." Tonks groaned at the thought. "Oh, I dread the thought of Mrs. Weasley trying to set up more chance meetings between Bill and me." Despite her complaints, Tonks fell into step beside Lupin, leaving the enigmatic premises of Johnny Silverhand's establishment behind them. Together, they ventured back into the night, their path illuminated by the bond of friendship and the mysteries that lay waiting in the heart of the wizarding world. Chapter 457, Christmas at Wick's House. In the world of both muggles and wizards, there are rulers and those who seek profit. John, an alchemist and a merchant of magic, is no exception. He lives by the principle of equivalent exchange, a belief that dictates his every transaction. According to this principle, a 10% profit ensures the safe employment of capital. At 20%, capital becomes active. At 50%, it is willing to take risks. And at 100% profit, it dares to trample all human laws. In a recent deal, John offered a profit margin so enticing that it silenced the purebloods. They incurred zero cost and zero loss. Their only requirement was to keep silent. Blinded by the lure of money, their consciences faded into the background. John, however, remained indifferent to this moral decay, focused solely on expanding his business. Recently, Malfoy visited Silverhand Manor, exuding pride. Since confirming his relationship with Astoria, his family's business had flourished. However, his lips, noticeably plumper than usual, caught John's attention, prompting a laugh. "Stop laughing," Malfoy said irritably. "I've tried everything, but nothing works. I suggest you visit Silvercross Hospital. They have specialists for spell injuries," John recommended, seizing the opportunity to promote his hospital. "It's too expensive," Malfoy complained, visibly alarmed by the cost. 100 galleons for just a checkup. Despite being relatively new, Silvercross Hospital boasted equipment on par with St. Mungo's. Its only drawback was the steep prices, especially for expert consultations, a fact that had been highlighted in the newspapers more than once. "That's because you don't have medical insurance," John explained with a shrug. "You're not from Nocturne Alley, after all." "Can't you arrange one for me?" Malfoy asked awkwardly. "My dad wants one, too." Lucius Malfoy, a well-known curator, lacked medical insurance due to his cautious stance towards the Museum of Dark Arts in Diagon Alley. As a result, his visits to Silvercross Hospital cost him twice as much. "No, that's against the rules," John replied. "The insurance was designed to attract talent to Nocturne Alley, available only to those who worked, lived, or were employed by Silverhand in the area. The Malfoys qualified for none of these criteria." "Fine," Malfoy muttered, his plump lips adding a touch of absurdity to his displeasure. Malfoy's visit wasn't just a social call. He brought news. "Mum met Bellatrix," he revealed. "Bellatrix has ties to Voldemort." "What did they discuss?" John inquired, his interest piqued. "I'm not sure," Malfoy admitted, shaking his head. "Bellatrix was secretive, and Mum only caught a word of their conversation." With a puzzled expression, Malfoy said, "The ferret." "Ferret?" John echoed, intrigued. This cryptic reference, overheard by Narcissa, seemed to be one of Voldemort's targets. Whether it referred to a person or a place remained unclear. "It appears Voldemort is indeed courting certain entities," John mused, his thoughts wandering to the elusive dark wizard. Voldemort's movements had been unpredictable since his last known location abroad. John's thoughts then shifted to Grindelwald, another dark wizard making headlines. Unlike Voldemort, Grindelwald's activities, including the assassination of a German Ministry of Magic official, were well documented, though he denied involvement. His notoriety had grown, yet only a handful of followers remained by his side. "The motive remains a mystery, making it a challenging puzzle," John concluded, setting aside the newspaper. His priority was clear: to deal with Voldemort first. "Is it because you lack leverage?" "You don't seem to have enough information to proceed," Malfoy observed, noting John's contemplative state. John nodded, acknowledging the complexity of the situation. The battle against dark forces required not just power, but also strategic intelligence and insight. John pondered Voldemort's limited options for regaining power. The Giant Alliance had failed. The 5 hidden pureblood families had been decimated under his hand, and his attempts to divide the werewolf packs had also fallen apart. He might seek assistance from abroad, or try to rally more dark creatures to his cause, John mused, removing the emerald green ring from his finger. This ring, a symbol of the Silverhand's power, had been a testament to John's years of maneuvering in the shadows, playing a high-stakes game with the wizarding world's most dangerous figures. He was not about to let his efforts be undone now. In this deadly game, only he or Voldemort could emerge victorious. "You need to grow stronger quickly, Voldemort," John muttered, though he had no desire to scour the globe in search of the Dark Lord. "Draco," he called out suddenly, causing Malfoy to look up in confusion. "Little Barty is waiting for you in the garden," John said with a seemingly innocent smile. "He believes you need to be strengthened. After all, you couldn't even dodge the wasp curse." Malfoy's expression soured at the reminder. Another training session? Couldn't Christmas offer a brief respite from their relentless preparations? "This is for your own survival, Draco," John added with a light chuckle. "A moment's carelessness can be fatal." Malfoy muttered under his breath about the lack of medical insurance, knowing any injuries would come out of his own pocket, then trudged off, his displeasure evident. John watched him go, then turned his attention back to the empty Silverhand Manor. The place felt more like a house only when it was filled with guests. "It's too quiet," he observed, feeling the absence of the usual holiday cheer. After a moment of contemplation, John decided, perhaps it's time to visit home for the holidays. It struck him that he had never once returned home for Christmas. This year would be different. "I remember Pop wanted an owl," he recalled. Owls were essential in the wizarding world for communicating with family and friends. Approaching the fireplace in Silverhand Manor, John watched as the flames turned blue. Stepping into the fire, he was instantly transported to the hearth of the Society of Stars. Exiting the flames, he was greeted by the sight of golden characters transforming into mischievous sprites. Brushing aside one particularly eager sprite, John retrieved a gray owl with a comically large head and round amber eyes. The owl didn't seem particularly bright, but it would make a suitable gift. As John prepared to return to the fireplace, he was stopped by the sight of Dumbledore waiting outside the door, a displeased look on his face. "Oh, John," Dumbledore greeted him with a smile, which John returned with a blank expression. "It's quite embarrassing for the great wizard Dumbledore to be lurking here, even on Christmas," John remarked dryly. Dumbledore, unfazed, simply blinked and replied, "As a gatekeeper, I feel it's my duty to be vigilant." John offered a hollow laugh in response, not buying Dumbledore's excuse. He suspected the headmaster's presence had more to do with concerns over potential threats to Hogwarts than any sense of duty. After a brief exchange, John returned to the fireplace, warning the gray owl not to attempt perching on his shoulder, as that spot was reserved for Basil, his other owl, who was known to be quite possessive. With the gray owl in tow, John stepped back into the blue flames, leaving Dumbledore behind. Emerging in the basement of the Wick residence, John ascended the stairs to find old Watson attempting to place his Wizard King atop the Christmas tree, while Mrs. Wick busied herself with making tea. The scene was a stark contrast to the solitude of Silverhand Manor, filled with the warmth and bustle of family preparing for the holidays. Watson was unfazed by the commotion, methodically placing the animated wizard chess pieces onto the Christmas tree. Among them, the Silver Knight was particularly vocal, proclaiming, "I have made contributions to this family. I am a hero." Watson, unimpressed, retorted, "Quiet down. Your only achievement is catching mice for me." Despite his protests, Watson positioned the Silver Knight at the center of the Christmas tree. Upon taking in his new surroundings, the knight's tone shifted. "The view from here is quite splendid." Suddenly, the tranquility was interrupted by a gray owl swooping in, its head cocked curiously as it eyed the Silver Knight. Watson was startled by the unexpected visitor. "Where did this one come from?" he wondered aloud. His question was left hanging as he caught sight of John approaching. Ignoring the Silver Knight's complaints about the gray owl's pecking, Watson exclaimed with a mix of surprise and joy, "John." At the sound of Watson's voice, Mrs. Wick gave a start, causing her to spill her black tea onto the table. She turned to see John standing there, but she didn't bother with the spill. Instead, Mrs. Wick rushed over to him. In that moment, the family was joyously reunited. The scene was one of chaotic warmth, with the Christmas tree adorned with protesting chess pieces, an inquisitive owl adding to the mix, and the unexpected arrival of John, weaving together a tapestry of family, surprise, and the spirit of the holiday season. Chapter 458, A Warm Homecoming. Mrs. Wick cradled her baby tenderly, her eyes lighting up as she greeted, "You're back, John." It had been 6 long years since John had last spent the holidays at home. Watson, ever the jovial companion, clapped John on the back in welcome, only to retreat under Mrs. Wick's stern gaze, which promised retribution for any disturbance. The Silverhand Manor, vast and imposing, struggled to embody the warmth of a home. Yet, whenever John returned, he found his room in impeccable order, a testament to Mrs. Wick's unwavering care. Watson's excitement knew no bounds upon learning that Gray Owl was to be John's personal owl. He eagerly dispatched a letter to John, using the owl, and later suggested a name for it, with a confidence that bordered on comical. "I'll call you Basil too," he declared, only to be met with a look of disbelief from both John and the owl. After a few more attempts, Watson settled on the name Kiki, though the owl's response, a deep, resonant sound, left him puzzled. "Is that how an owl sounds?" Watson asked, bewildered. John, with a hint of amusement, replied, "Each owl is unique in its own way." Watson, half convinced, half doubtful, continued to question the peculiar sound, likening it to a dragon's cry. John, however, playfully dismissed his father's suspicions, reassuring him that an owl could not possibly be a dragon. Mrs. Wick, ever supportive of her son, advised Watson to cease his inquiries unless he fancied sleeping on the sofa. Reluctantly, Watson accepted the oddity of their owl's vocalizations. Christmas was upon them, and John's return infused the holiday with vibrancy. The manor was alive with the presence of 3 owls, perched in a row, while Tom, the family dog, busied himself below, sending sawdust flying with his paws. Mrs. Wick, showing a fondness for Tom, allowed him the comfort of the sofa, gently stroking his head as he lay in her lap. This, however, sparked a playful skirmish between Tom and Basil, with feathers and fur momentarily flying in a chaotic dance. Outside, snow blanketed the world in a serene white, heralding a frosty Christmas morning. Inside, the Wick family gathered around a brightly burning fireplace, the warmth contrasting the cold outside. Tom found a cozy spot by the fire, basking in the heat. John, amidst the festive atmosphere, opened gifts from friends. Neville had sent a durable suit, while Cedric's gift was a package filled with Egyptian sand, a memento from his travels. Daphne gifted a scarf and a pocket watch, the latter exquisitely crafted with precious metals and stones. Percy's present was an alchemy book, albeit one John had already read. Fleur surprised John with a beautiful necklace, prompting a bemused reaction from him, given the feminine nature of his recent gifts. Among the other presents, John received a witcher's silver medallion from his uncle, adorned with a dragon, a nod to John's tales of witchers. Malfoy's gift was a Quidditch book and broom trimmers, a clear attempt to coax John back into the sport, though John had no such intentions. As the day progressed, John's owls, Basil and Riddle, returned from their adventures, the latter carrying the Daily Prophet. The newspaper featured an article on Lockhart, capturing John's attention and drawing him into the day's news, a reminder of the world beyond their festive bubble. Gilderoy Lockhart was still basking in the limelight during the festival, hosting a handshake event that drew considerable attention. Despite his notorious reputation, one couldn't help but admire his audacity for fearlessly dismissing the threat of Voldemort, which, in a way, helped alleviate the recent panic surrounding Voldemort's resurgence. Lockhart took it upon himself to direct a play rehearsal in the garden, which had been turned upside down for the occasion, and even performed a new story he had concocted. "If I were Voldemort, I'd kill him first," John remarked, unable to suppress his applause as he looked at a photograph of Lockhart enacting the great wizard Lockhart's Thring, confrontations with Voldemort. It seemed that Voldemort's tolerance had grown, perhaps indicating a decline in his intelligence upon his return. Meanwhile, Harry was spending Christmas at the Burrow. Sirius, at number 12 Grimmauld Place, had a spat with Kreacher, resulting in the old house elf being banished to the kitchen. Kreacher, in a fit of spite, had undone all the Christmas decorations, under the guise of cleaning, effectively erasing any sign of the holiday spirit. Before his departure, Kreacher couldn't resist muttering insults about Sirius and Harry, making it challenging to foster a festive atmosphere. Upon their arrival at the Burrow, they were warmly welcomed by Mrs. Weasley, and the atmosphere was vibrant with holiday cheer. Ginny had adorned the living room with colorful decorations and flowers, creating a scene reminiscent of a floral explosion. The Christmas tree featured a peculiar angel, a garden gnome that had been painted gold, dressed in a tiny tutu, and given makeshift wings after Fred had stunned it for biting him. This makeshift angel, arguably the least angelic figure imaginable, brought back memories of the Cupid Lockhart had created during Harry's second year. The kitchen was filled with the aroma of Mrs. Weasley's delicious Christmas cooking, accompanied by the sound of Celestina Warbeck's Christmas broadcast, which, to the dismay of some, included the song Hot Pot of Love. Sirius's complaints about the music earned him a stern look from Mrs. Weasley. The holiday spirit was further amplified by the arrival of Bill and Fleur. However, the mention of Percy brought a momentary pause to the festivities, with Ron expressing his continued resentment towards his brother. Fleur's presence at the table led to a minor incident involving a maggot on Harry's head, which was quickly resolved with a display of her magical prowess, much to the amusement of those present. Mrs. Weasley, in an attempt to include everyone in the celebrations, mentioned inviting Tonks, only to be met with a reminder of her absence. The conversation hinted at underlying tensions and unspoken stories among the guests. The unexpected arrival of Arthur Weasley and Percy through the snow brought a mix of emotions. Percy's stiff greeting contrasted with Mr. Weasley's warm cheer, highlighting the strained relationship between father and son. As Percy entered, his silence spoke volumes, leaving the gathered family and friends to ponder the complexities of their reunion. This Christmas at the Burrow, filled with moments of joy, awkwardness, and reconciliation, painted a vivid picture of the Weasley family's dynamics and the broader wizarding community's challenges during these tumultuous times. "Oh, Percy!" Fleur exclaimed with enthusiasm, rushing forward to embrace him and plant a kiss on his cheek. "Merry Christmas, Fleur," Percy replied, his tone less warm as he gently pushed Fleur away. Mrs. Weasley, who had been watching the exchange with a sharp eye, approached her son with open arms. "Merry Christmas, Mother," Percy greeted her, presenting a gift wrapped with a ribbon. Mrs. Weasley's face lit up with joy as she unwrapped the present to reveal a luxurious and beautiful hat inside. Ginny observed the hat, then glanced between it and Mrs. Weasley's head, her lips curling in a barely concealed smirk. Noticing Ginny's expression, Percy couldn't help but smile. "Merry Christmas, Ginny," he said, his voice carrying a hint of amusement. Ginny responded with a snort, but Percy, who knew his sister all too well, added, "If you check your room, you'll find that there's a gift waiting for you there." "Merry Christmas, Percy," Ginny replied, her tone softening. She quickly got up and dashed to her room, eager to discover what Percy had left for her. The room was filled with a warm, festive atmosphere as the Weasley family and their guests continued to exchange greetings and gifts, each interaction weaving another thread into the fabric of their holiday celebrations. Chapter 459, Stardust Flying Out of the Window. After a brief moment, screams echoed from upstairs. Ginny hurried down, clutching a broom-shaped package tightly in her arms. Ron looked at her in disbelief. "You got her a broomstick?" "Percy, may I open it?" Ginny asked eagerly, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Percy nodded, showing no objections. Ginny wasted no time, her hands moving with surprising speed. Within seconds, she had torn through the wrapping paper, sending pieces fluttering around the room like stardust. Revealed beneath was a brand-new Nimbus 2000, its surface gleaming and the scent of maintenance oil still fresh upon it. Ron's eyes widened in astonishment. "Percy, how could you afford this?" Although it wasn't the latest model, the Nimbus 2001, it was still a considerable expense. Ginny's joy was palpable, her worries about facing Slytherin's aggressive tactics on the Quidditch field now alleviated. Harry shared in her happiness, pleased to see his friend so delighted. The Weasley household was bustling with activity as Arthur invited Percy back for the holidays. Upon his arrival, George and Fred teased him, while Charlie greeted him with a warm hug. Percy found a seat next to Fleur, under the watchful eyes of Sirius and Lupin, who both wore their Order of the Phoenix badges prominently. An awkward tension filled the air, only to be broken by Mrs. Weasley's motherly attentions and Mr. Weasley's updates from the ministry. He reminded George and Fred not to neglect their anti-spell hat project. As the family settled down for a meal, Mrs. Weasley prepared a sandwich for Percy, insisting he try her cooking. Fleur, pushing the gravy towards Percy, caught Ron's envious glance. Percy, surprised by Fleur's presence, soon understood her reasons for staying when Bill caught her eye. The conversation inevitably turned to the Ministry of Magic, with Percy sharing insights from his role in international relations. Mr. Weasley lamented the expansion of the werewolf community's buildings, a project spearheaded by the controversial Silver Hand organization. Percy defended the Silver Hand's contributions, leading to a tense exchange between father and son. The atmosphere at the table grew strained, with Mrs. Weasley attempting to mediate the situation. The disagreement highlighted the differing perspectives within the family, with Fleur silently siding with Percy. After dinner, the family gathered to open presents. Ron expressed his disappointment at not receiving any gifts from his brothers, especially in light of Ginny's impressive Nimbus 2000. Meanwhile, George and Fred presented Mrs. Weasley with a hat, leaving her in a dilemma over which to wear. Charlie was surprised by a generous donation to his work with dragons, sparking Ron's envy and contemplation of a career in magizoology. Despite the festive spirit, Fleur did not receive a sweater from Mrs. Weasley, a detail that did not go unnoticed. Sirius vented his frustrations about Creature to Lupin, while Percy was approached for a private conversation. The chapter closes on a note of unresolved tensions and unspoken conversations, setting the stage for further developments in the Weasley household. After a brief exchange with Sirius, Percy glanced at Mr. Weasley, nodded affirmatively, and said yes. They then proceeded to walk out the door into the garden of the burrow. The garden was a wild tangle of nature, with trees entwined around the walls, weeds and grass growing unchecked, a large pond, and goblins scurrying about. One goblin darted past Percy's feet, earning itself a swift kick. "Don't hold it against your father, Percy," Lupin advised gently. "He's only trying to protect the family." He paused before adding, "John has never harmed us. You must recognize that." Percy gave Lupin a measured look and replied, "As a werewolf, you're more familiar with John's nature than most." Lupin offered a wry smile in response. "Indeed, I've come to realize that my perspective as a werewolf might be unique." He regarded Percy, his former student, with a mix of respect and understanding. "The more I learn about him, the more I see why you've chosen to stand by him," Lupin admitted with a sigh. "His charisma is undeniable." "But what are his true ambitions?" Lupin couldn't resist asking. His curiosity piqued. "The members of the Star Club, you're among those who know John best. It's important to me." "Ambition?" Percy pondered the question for a moment before responding softly. "Is that really important?" Lupin was taken aback by the answer. Percy continued, "He's a good friend, a reliable classmate, and someone worth following. Isn't that enough?" Lupin fell silent, clearly dissatisfied with the response. Percy looked back at the burrow, its structure resembling something out of a fairy tale, and remarked indifferently, "Between Dumbledore and John, the only difference is that John prioritizes his own people. Unlike Dumbledore, who is selfless and almost godlike, John possesses a certain selfishness, ensuring that those closest to him are taken care of first," Percy explained. After sharing his thoughts, Percy prepared to leave, having returned for Christmas, not an interrogation. Lupin had no reason to detain him, and Fleur was also making her departure known. Bill, puzzled, asked, "Where are you going?" Fleur rolled her eyes at him and stated bluntly, "Your mother doesn't welcome me here, so naturally I'll spend the holidays elsewhere." Her pride was evident in her tone. Bill wanted to offer an explanation, but Fleur had already left the burrow. The members of the Star Club had departed. Ginny hurried down the stairs, clutching her Nimbus 2000. Harry and Ron followed, with Harry carrying a bundle of old clothes, remnants of his time living in modest conditions. As they descended the staircase, Harry stumbled, causing the clothes to scatter and a bottle of black powder to roll out of his pocket and stop at Ginny's feet. "What is this?" Ginny inquired, picking up the bottle. Harry, collecting his clothes, was startled to see the bottle. Lupin returned, glanced at the bottle, and remarked, "It appears to be some kind of magical substance." Ron, puzzled, commented, "I don't recall anything like this at school." They discussed the mysterious substance briefly before Harry placed the clothes on the sofa, intending to take them to Sirius Black's old house later that evening. He then explained, "This is called stardust. It's a magical tool used to detect if anyone is spying on us." "Oh," Ron said, his interest waning upon hearing its purpose. As evening approached and darkness fell, those who had been out began to return. Fleur's absence was noted, much to Mrs. Weasley's relief. She hummed, "A pot of hot love," while stirring the thick soup simmering on the stove. Ginny, still curious about the stardust, asked, "How is it used?" Harry opened the bottle and poured out a small amount of stardust, scattering it into the air. Instead of falling to the ground, the stardust drifted out of the window, sparkling like stars against the night sky. "Where is it going?" Ron asked, leaning in with a look of doubt. Harry, equally puzzled, admitted, "I don't know." Harry suspected that the object had been neglected for too long and had malfunctioned. He, along with two others, stood by the window, their gazes following the trajectory of what appeared to be stardust as it drifted into the garden outside the burrow. It settled behind the tall weeds, creating a mesmerizing scene that caught Harry's attention. As he watched, the weeds stirred unexpectedly. Through the dense foliage, Harry spotted the unmistakable glint of a wand cutting through the air. "Someone's there," he announced, tension lacing his voice. Without warning, the wand wielded by the unseen figure sent a spell hurtling towards the burrow. Inside, the Weasleys' clocks, which were enchanted to show the whereabouts and safety of family members, spun wildly. Every hand pointed to mortal danger, a grim warning of the imminent threat. Moments later, the tranquility was shattered by the sound of an explosion. The sudden attack caught everyone off guard. Harry and his companions sprang into action, their hearts racing as they prepared to confront the unknown assailant. The peaceful evening had turned into a scene of chaos, with the safety of the Weasleys hanging in the balance. Chapter 460, George's Left Ear. The tranquility of the burrow was shattered in an instant. An explosion tore through half of the wall, sending debris flying and damaging everything inside. Outside, on the garden swamp, stood a woman with a terrifying expression, a green snake coiled around her neck. Behind her, several menacing figures appeared, their grins foreboding. "Kill them all!" Bellatrix Lestrange commanded with a sinister tone. A barrage of spells rained down on the burrow, igniting purple flames that danced menacingly across the ground. Just as the situation seemed dire, two voices cut through the chaos. "All curses end! Finite!" A black dog charged out, transforming into Sirius Black as he thrust his wand into the ground. Remus Lupin, with equal urgency, leaped through a window, joining the fray. Before the flames could further ravage the burrow, they were halted by protective golden barriers. "Molly, take the children and leave." Arthur Weasley, his hair coated in dust from the explosion, bellowed into the house. He grabbed his wand and charged outside, his heart racing with fear for his family's safety. Harry's timely warning had prevented a catastrophe, but the anti-apparition spell cast by their attackers left them with few options for escape. Protego, Arthur deflected an incoming spell, simultaneously casting a flying charm to clear a path through the debris. "Go to the shed, there's a car hidden there," Bill urged, pushing his mother towards safety. Charlie, upon hearing this, sprinted to the shed, while Ron and Ginny looked on, feeling a mix of fear and shame. Harry, too, was disheartened, realizing the gravity of their situation. "Is it Voldemort?" Ron asked, his voice tinged with fear. "What?" Harry's ears were still ringing from the explosion, making it hard for him to hear clearly. Ginny, noticing his disorientation, grabbed his hair and turned his head, pointing out the intact broom in her hand as a potential means of escape. Molly Weasley, her maternal instincts in overdrive, gathered her three youngest and made a beeline for the shed. Fred and George, wands at the ready, joined the battle outside, determined to protect their home. "Quick, hurry over," Charlie called out, having pulled the family car out of the shed. Despite her fear, Molly knew she had to protect her children at all costs. In a heart-stopping moment, Harry pulled Mrs. Weasley back from a deadly green spell. "Charlie!" Ron screamed as an orange spell struck the car, causing it to explode in a fiery blaze. "No!" Mrs. Weasley's scream was filled with anguish as she attempted to rush into the flames to save her son. "Molly, don't!" Arthur yelled, his voice filled with desperation. A bat-like creature swooped down, but Mrs. Weasley, fueled by the pain of potentially losing her child, fought back fiercely, eventually destroying the creature. However, the encounter left her weakened and dizzy. "Mom," Ron said, rushing to support her. Harry, quick to react, blocked another spell, his counter hitting one of the attackers hidden in the grass. With no means of transportation and surrounded by enemies, their situation seemed dire. Then, Harry spotted the Nimbus 2000 in Ginny's hand. "Give me the broom," he called out. Ginny, understanding immediately, tossed the broomstick to him. Harry mounted it and flew into the night, dodging spells. Meanwhile, Charlie, having survived the explosion by a miracle, struggled out of the burning car, his body briefly engulfed in flames before he managed to cast a spell to protect himself. In a moment of chaos, George pushed Fred out of harm's way, but a spell grazed George's left ear, drawing blood. The brothers tumbled to the ground, narrowly avoiding further spells. "Arthur, I told you to clear that pile of weeds sooner," Sirius yelled, highlighting the difficulty of identifying their attackers in the night. Lupin, usually mild-mannered, let out a curse as he cast spells, trying to fend off their assailants. Unable to flee, Ron, Ginny, and the others joined the fight with renewed vigor. Ginny's spells were precise, her sharp eyesight allowing her to target their hidden enemies effectively. As the battle raged on, the Weasleys and their allies fought desperately to protect their home and each other, their courage shining brightly in the face of overwhelming odds. Sirius quickly whispered something to Ron, providing cover for me as he rolled to the side. Transforming into a large black dog, he moved with remarkable speed, making it difficult for the spell to target him. He lunged at an enemy, a man with a mouthful of black teeth, whose screams echoed through the night. Another assailant cast a spell at Sirius, but he agilely dodged, and the spell instead struck the wizard beneath him. The bitten and bleeding wizard convulsed and died instantly. The three wizards pursued Sirius, but just as they were about to catch him, Harry descended from the sky on his broomstick. Holding the broomstick with one hand, Harry drew his wand with the other and cast a spell, Sectum Sempra. The invisible blade sliced through the three attackers. Harry then swooped down, grabbed Sirius, who had reverted to his human form, and used the spell again to clear the tall weeds, instantly improving their visibility. "Nice job, Harry," Sirius praised, as he conjured flames to set the weeds ablaze. The fire illuminated the night, revealing their hidden adversary. Bellatrix, with her wand aimed at the duo, cast Expulso. The spell hit the broomstick, causing Harry to lose control and crash to the ground with Sirius. Fortunately, Fred threw a Peruvian instant darkness powder bomb, providing them a momentary reprieve. However, the Nimbus 2000, recently acquired by Ginny, was destroyed. Upon returning to the burrow, Harry, with a look of guilt, said to Ginny, "I'll pay you for the broom." Ginny, dismissing his concern, retreated inside. Ron, affected by a spell, vomited behind a wall. Lupin, assessing their situation, encouraged them to press forward and managed to hit an enemy with a spell. The Weasleys and their allies fought bravely, but the appearance of Inferi, summoned by Bellatrix, changed the tide. Recognizing the threat, Sirius ordered everyone to retreat to the house. The Inferi, numbering in the hundreds, advanced towards the burrow. The defenders, including Mr. Weasley, Lupin, Sirius, and Bill, conjured protective barriers to shield the house. The sight of the male and female Inferi, with their ghastly faces, was terrifying as they relentlessly attacked the burrow. Inside, the situation was dire. Charlie was severely injured, George was bleeding from his left ear, and Ron was still sick. Ginny had a cut on her neck, and her hair was unevenly cut. Mrs. Weasley lay pale and unresponsive. Harry, realizing he was injured, saw that a curse had blown off a piece of his calf. Lupin quickly tended to his wound, stopping the bleeding. The situation outside remained grim, with the Inferi continuing their assault. The defenders' magic barely held against the onslaught, leaving the burrow isolated and under siege. Confusion reigned as Lupin struggled to comprehend the sudden assault. "Why is Bellatrix here?" he questioned, bewildered by the unexpected attack. The burrow was protected against apparition, leaving everyone puzzled about the attacker's infiltration method. At that moment, Harry provided a clue. "I saw it from Ferret Hill." Ferret Hill, not far from the Weasleys' home, offered a clear view of the surrounding area, including the ominous approach of another formidable enemy. "We need to make a break for it," Sirius declared decisively. "Staying here will only result in our defenses being overrun." Although the truth was clear to all, the means of escape were less obvious. Their cars had been destroyed, and their broomsticks lay in ruins. It was George who then had a spark of inspiration. "We can use the whoosh boom fireworks. They'll not only signal for help from nearby wizards, including the Diggories and the Lovegoods, but they can also repel the Inferi." The fireworks, a product of Fred and George's ingenuity, were known to be effective against creatures that feared light and fire. With no time to lose, Fred and George hurried to their third-floor room to retrieve the fireworks. After setting the ignition, they dashed downstairs to join the others. Sirius turned to the three students, his tone serious yet instructive. Consider this a practical lesson in defense against the Inferi. With a flick of his wand, he produced a blinding light that made the advancing Inferi shriek and retreat. Inspired, Harry and the others followed suit, their wands alight, carving a path through the dark mass of creatures. As they seized the moment to escape, the sky above them erupted in a spectacle of fireworks. The explosions were deafening, the flames bright, forcing the Inferi to retreat further. Harry, Ginny, and Ron, supported by Bill and Mrs. Weasley, ran in the opposite direction, away from the danger. But their relief was short-lived as the ground trembled beneath their feet. Turning, they witnessed a giant charging towards the burrow, adding a new layer of threat to the knight's already dire circumstances. The group's escape was fraught with peril, but their quick thinking and solidarity in the face of such unexpected danger showcased the strength and resourcefulness that had always defined them. As they navigated through the chaos, the night air was filled with the sounds of battle, the light of magic, and the hope that they might yet survive this assault.